think we're
Did you
ready
go?
for showtime here.
I'll wait for the,
Recording in progress.
okay. Welcome to the Norwich Select Board meeting, regular meeting, Wednesday, March 26th, 2025. Mary Layton, Chair. To my left is Priscilla Vincent, Vice Chair, Kimo Griggs, Marcia Calloway, Matt Sweat, and Town Manager Brian Duffy. And support from Jan Beatrice, for your last name, and Jenny Tolman's taking our minutes, which is much appreciated. First item on the agenda is to approve the agenda. Is there a motion or there are some edits? Yes.
I was just wondering if a housekeeping matter or whether we needed to discuss this, but we have a very prominent member of the fire department here. And so if there was a call, I was just thinking that maybe we should talk about, agree that he could also go.
Mhm.
And then do we need some sort of procedure or process for him to be able to say, could we table something, that he particularly wanted to be part of?
Oh, that's interesting. Should that be an agenda item tonight, or, I mean, would we know enough about it? Like how often, we're talking about you, I think, Matt,
Yeah,
getting called out.
I think this came up because last meeting, I did get a call in the middle of
Okay,
the meeting, and I mentioned that to Marcia. And it had, if we have a real significant call, I should probably go.
yes, you should.
And it makes a lot of sense. Thank you for raising that issue to pre-plan, like how that would happen.
Okay,
I'm fine to, make a think about this and make a suggestion, maybe.
Mhm.
For next time, or,
Yes.
and then we could just say for this time, if it so happens, just have to get up and go.
yes.
Is that what we want to do during
Well,
the select
I
board
think
meeting?
if it's an emergency and you need to help, you do have to get up and go.
Sure.
But as Marcia said, you might have a particular interest in an agenda item
Yeah,
where, we might want to table specific things if you have to go.
okay.
So that was her suggestion, but do you want to think about it a little further, Matt, and get back to us next time?
Yeah, we can leave it for this time. If
But you can go.
disaster
There's
strikes,
a
I can
fire.
go.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out. All right, sounds good.
Okay.
Thank
Any
you.
other suggestions? Yes?
Yeah, I would like to request that the letter from Alicia Groff from the Norwich Fire Department,
Which is in
which is
correspondence.
like page 147 or something, if that could be moved up with the other appointments, because it's the request that the select board appoint a candidate, a very splendid candidate, to fill a recently vacated seat on the Prudential Committee.
Okay, we'll respond to that. I asked for it to be, I asked for that. It wasn't formally submitted as correspondence, but it ended up there. But when we could move it there because it will be earlier and we'll have energy to talk about it. There may be some discussion about it, so we just want to allow for an extra 5 or 10 minutes to discuss. I mean, there's some I have procedural questions about it. I don't mind moving it.
Okay.
Just how to.
Well, we have, and the other thing I was wondering is we had a very nice letter from John Farrell saying he would be willing to apply to be the town service officer. And I don't know if we wanted to move that up into the part where we discuss appointments too. I'm just asking.
Yeah, it might be that we discuss both of those requests, but I don't think we would be appointing John Farrell tonight. It wouldn't be.
No,
But we could talk about the latter, which does have to do with the town service officer.
Yeah.
If others agree, otherwise it will be way at the end in correspondence. So. Does anyone else feel strongly about moving one or more items to, what is it, number 4?
Do you want to move all of the correspondence up or just?
There were 2 that had to do with possible appointments, but I think they merit a little more discussion.
Yeah, but the other correspondence.
The other correspondence, I believe we can accept
Okay.
without a lot of discussion.
Yeah.
But if that's okay with, you know, at least a majority of us, I'd be okay with that.
No objection from me.
Okay, so that's, it's Alicia Groff, I think.
Yeah.
And John Farrell. Okay. So this, I think, would be to move the agenda as amended.
Do we know where we're gonna put this?
On number 4,
Oh, on number 4.
the
Okay,
correspondence.
okay. I move to approve the agenda as presented then.
As
As amended.
amended.
Ah,
Is there a second?
Second. Oops, sorry.
Let's give it to Matt. You might have to leave. Might not get another chance. All right, so Priscilla, how do you vote?
Yes.
Okay, and Timo,
Yes.
and Marcia,
Yes.
and Matt,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. So that went through. Next is the chair's report. There's a lot going on, including, I'm thinking in general of trying to improve communications. So the vice chair and I had an adventure with furniture to see whether we could look more cohesive as a board, but that's a work in progress. So that's something that we may or may not come back to. As always, I met with the town manager, the assistant town manager, and this time with our new administrative assistant, Britta Valens, to put together the agenda. I have devised a framework which I'm hoping will help us to get a few projects done before budget season, because we seem to get bogged down, is my experience from many years. We get a little scattered and don't get some things done. So I've devised a framework for the consideration of the select board for research purposes. I'll just sort of read this off. So this is going to include, this is for research by individual select board members, which would not only satisfy the open meeting law requirements, will make them easier, but also that our Katuki settlement requires us, let's say we had a team of select board members to research something, it would have to be a formal process. So there'd have to be a charge and agendas and minutes and, you know, access, public access. If we have 2, I think if we have 1, that's not a group, and that's not defined that way in that agreement. So on our motion sheet tonight, I've set up several areas that might be directions that people want to go, but of course, that's the decision of the select board. So the structure would be developing a charge, appointing the researchers, and conducting the research within a timeline so we can try to get some things done, and very carefully adhering to the open meeting law. So that will come up later in the meeting if the select board wants to proceed with that format. And just areas that came off the top of my head that I think are high priority are to get an interim heat plan for this building so that staff doesn't have to suddenly leave in the middle of the winter, next winter. More of an action plan for the renovation of Tracy Hall, which would be more of a full-blown committee or a larger committee. The purchasing policy needs revision, the gift policy needs revision. And overall, I think it would be great to improve communication. So those are the areas that I thought of. And those will be discussing down in number 9, select board town goals, and anything else the board would like to bring up about what they would like to have for goals this year. I listened to the open meeting law webinar on the Vermont Secretary of State website. I think that would be a great way for all of our board chairs to get an overview of what the, what that's all about. I also signed up for an extra seminar on April 16th, I think, and just trying to become very versed in that. I listened to the town clerk put out an artificial intelligence synopsis of our meeting. I listened to that. And I hope they can learn, because was kind of C-, I thought, but it was very interesting. I spoke to a citizen, Chris Clement, about the tone of a recent listserv post, because I do think we should listen to concerns, but I think we should, as a town and as people, try to treat as much as we can, because we all lose our temper sometimes, but just try to communicate respectfully. And I will say, I've been part of 2 formal searches for town managers, and I do think it affects candidates that we consider. We have a very high bar for what we're looking for, who we're looking for, and what their qualities are, but they have a high bar too for the communities that they like to work in. So, you know, it would just be great if we could have, if you have a concern, to couch it in a, you know, just in a way that's not mean, would be great. I received correspondence from John Carroll. He's very interested in open meeting law practice. There's a little dialogue going there. And Pam Smith regarding keeping the website updated to reflect current openings for volunteer, you know, boards and committees. Reviewed the town manager contract and evaluation form and the town manager extension, and reviewed the Katuki settlement. So that's what I was up to this week. And I hope that didn't take up too much time. We tried on this agenda to put time limits on things, so I hope I didn't go over my own idea there. Okay, questions on the chair's report? Marcia?
Not a question, but I would just echo your comments about how we need to interact and be respectful of our employees, and to also be factual, because anything that's said, whether or not it's factual, has been said, and it's damaging. And as you say, I've been involved in a formal search, and it damages the town. So I think, you know, we have now gone through a period of quiet, I think, and have a good town manager at the helm. And I think that does a lot of good for Norwich's reputation. So I'm applauding the town manager for the work that's done, and also very concerned that people are respectful of that and be careful of how they speak.
Yes, thank you, Marcia. Any other comments or questions? Okay. Let's move on to number 3, public comments for items not on the agenda. Are there public comments for non-agenda items? Okay, then we'll move on to appointments for committees. We have a long list. I thought perhaps to go in the maybe in the order of which formal applications are made. Does that make sense? Because then you can scroll down through. Okay, so I believe we have an opening on the Board of Listers, 1 interim seat, which would go till town meeting, I think, of 2026. And Pam Smith has stepped forward to apply for that. Is she here tonight? There's Pam.
Yeah.
Would you like to come up and? Thank you. You're welcome.
Yes, I have applied for a 1-year appointment as a lister. I don't really have anything to add to my application. I think everything is pretty well said there. And you all know me, so I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Marcia?
I'm wondering if you'll sign the personnel policy if you're appointed.
I've already answered that question, Marcia, on January 22nd.
That's,
In this meeting.
I know, but as a list, would you sign it?
No, I will not.
You
Mary,
want to comment further on that? Okay.
I think it's important. The personnel policies are in place based on recommendations on law, on, you know, the recommendations of our own council. And I haven't found anything in authority to suggest that any of those policies would in any way abrogate any of the statutory responsibilities, duties, or privileges that an elected official has. But I think it's axiomatic that we as a board who've approved the policies should be insisting that people who have positions which could in fact interact with people both within and outside the Tracy Hall walls, it's important that we present a face to the legal community, to our own people here, that we intend that everybody be treated in a certain manner and have a conduct that is consistent with our policies. So I wouldn't be able to vote in favor of anyone who wanted to be appointed to a position that wouldn't sign that.
Okay, thank you. Any other?
May I respond?
Yes, you may.
Thank you. Marcia, as you know, I sent an email to all board members stating that VLCT
Oh, yeah, I guess you have to.
VLCT says this is a strictly voluntary policy and that it was designed for treasurers and town clerks who might be eligible for not only wages, but benefits. And because the position of lister does not accrue any benefits, it's totally unnecessary. And I think I have proven through my service to this town that I treat people with respect. I treat them ethically. I have never violated any statute that I'm aware of. And so I find this totally unnecessary. And I'm opposed to the policy. I voted against the personnel policy because of addendum B, and I will not sign it.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Kimo.
I might have something to add. I was at the VCLT introduction for new select board members last weekend, and this question came up. The VLC no longer recommends the Form B given to select board or other members.
You just the chair.
Hi. And they felt there may be some instances where a sworn oath might conflict with statutes and laws. They couldn't cite anything specific, but they said that you do one or the other, and that they were happy with that. So I asked specifically, and
Okay,
that was the response.
so maybe this could be an agenda item because I've noticed also our treasurer has not signed it and our town clerk and Pam does not feel comfortable signing it. So it might be that we want to research whether it's necessary anymore, as VLCT has said, whether our legal counsel would still recommend it, but also why people feel uncomfortable with it. And maybe just have an agenda item at some point about that. Because, you know, if it were acceptable and we all agreed, it would just present a unified front. If it's not appropriate, maybe it should be dropped for everyone. So, all right, Priscilla?
I feel as though we had quite an extensive discussion about this when it was first proposed. And I really don't want to wade into that
You don't
anymore.
wanna wade
I
into
just
it.
don't
Okay.
really want to spend more time on it.
On
But
that.
I'm
Okay.
just one of five.
No, that's okay. Marcia?
I'm wondering if the town manager has any new information about that.
Okay.
So I was gonna opine not about the appointment of any sort, but just in general. So I think it would make sense at this point, maybe to have town council come back to the board and explain again in detail why we felt for liability purposes, it was important to have everybody who's interacting with staff sign the addendum, acknowledge that we have personnel policies that govern the way we act and interact with people. And that was the sole purpose of the addendum B. And I've read it, you know, we're part of the creation of it. To me, I see nothing there that we're asking an elected official to sign in most cases, one exception being the clerk perhaps, that would interact or would be a concern for interacting and doing their duty as a elected official. So that's my position as a town manager. I think it would be very good if every elected official signed that, so we do have that on record. And then if in the future there's a behavior that crosses the line, the town has the ability to say, we made it very clear that that's unacceptable. And I think that was really the main purpose of Amendment B.
Okay,
Yeah, respond.
hang on, Marcia first, please.
I was just gonna say, we should potentially table this until we get more information.
Table the appointment.
Yeah.
That's a suggestion, okay, because you haven't moved it yet. I'd like to hear from Pam.
Well, as Chemo said, VLCT is no longer putting forth this policy. They no longer support it. And they were the ones that actually created the policy. And like I said, they told me that it was strictly voluntary, that no one can be compelled to sign it or penalized for failure to do so. And I'm just gobsmacked by this whole policy. And the position of some people on whether this is appropriate to try to enforce when there is no mechanism for enforcement. The elected officials are answerable only to the electorate, not.
Well, to the Constitution of Vermont. Right. Yes, we swear to the Constitution of Vermont, but yes,
And I take that oath of office and I take it seriously, and I've served as a lister for 4 years. I served on the select board for 2 years. And I have shown that I have the ability to do the job and to do it in a manner that is respectful and legal. And I don't understand why my appointment would be held up because I am not willing to sign a form that isn't supported by VLCT anymore and was only intended for the clerk and the treasurer if they received wages and benefits. I would not receive any benefits.
right. Thank you. Priscilla?
Would you permit me to move the question?
I'd like to say one thing first, that I think Pam could be very helpful in our appraisal year in helping the Board of Listers to get that done, and she is experienced. So I'll just say that in her favor. This is, yes, she did, it's a voluntary, you're not required to sign this in order to serve. It's voluntary, as she has said. And she just want to have a little bit more on the other side of the equation. She can help us out in an appraisal year, and she would serve until town meeting when there's an opportunity for someone to run for lister again. So we shouldn't forget that, in our deliberations. I'll just say that. And is there a motion?
I would love to move to appoint Pam Smith to the position of lister for a term to expire on March 3rd, 2026.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Let's see. Well, let's take the vote here. Priscilla, how do you vote?
Yes.
I am going to vote. Well, I'm going to vote at the end. Go ahead, Chemo.
Yes.
Okay, Marcia?
No, just for the reason that I think everybody is.
Okay. Matt?
Yes.
And I am a yes.
Thank you. I look forward to helping the town get through the reappraisal and all of the grievances that I'm sure will be coming as a result of that. And so I thank you for appointing me, and I take this responsibility seriously. And I will do my best to see this process through.
Thank you, Pam.
Right, thank you. Thank you for support.
Right. I believe our next appointment is for Conservation Commission, and just in the order that came in the packet is Craig Lane here.
Hiding.
Oh, wait, pops up. All right. Would you like to say a little bit about why you'd like to continuing?
Yeah, I reapplied for the commission just to help finish off some things, management plans for town parcels and other projects that we're working on. I even put in my application that if someone new applied, I would gladly endorse them. I need some new people involved, but if we have just the right number, I'm happy to go another term.
Okay, the questions for Craig? Marcia?
Not a question, a comment. I think he's got unparalleled experience, and, the subject matter expertise that you have is just what we need right now. So I'm thrilled that you're continuing or wishing to continue.
Thanks.
Any other questions or comments?
You have a hand up on the screen.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But I think that's.
Marie, is this related to the Conservation Commission?
It definitely is.
Okay,
Yeah, so I've
ahead.
worked with Craig for several years, and I think that he is a great member of the Conservation Commission, and I really enjoy working with him. He considers all members of Norwich and everything he does, so I definitely endorse him continuing on.
All right, thank you. Seeing no other comments, is there a motion?
I move to appoint Craig Lane to the Conservation Commission for a term to expire on March 31st, 2029.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, let's see, vote, Priscilla,
Yes.
Chemo,
Yes.
Marcia,
Yes.
Matt,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. You may never retire at this point. Thank you. for your service.
Craig.
I really appreciate it.
Who was the second on that one?
Oh, that was chemo.
Okay.
All right, Lindsay Putnam. Is she here tonight?
Speak for her, if that's okay.
Okay.
She was unable to come tonight. I'm Linwood Andrews,
All right.
16 Meeting House Road.
Wait, could you say your name again, please?
Linwood Andrews. LYNNWOOD.
Okay, would you like to speak?
Lindsay has worked on the Conservation Commission. This is her second term, and she's been very busy. She's worked on the post office displays. She's helped in Milt Fry, and she has a lot of enthusiasm. She's, of course, I think many of you know her as in her previous role at the elementary school, doing the outdoor education. So she has a lot of knowledge to bring to the position.
A lot of energy, I believe, too. Other questions? No? Is there a motion?
Sure. I move to appoint Lindsay Putnam with thanks to the Conservation Commission for a term to expire on March 31st, 2029.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Takes a vote. Priscilla, how do you vote?
Yes.
Chemo,
Yes.
Marcia,
Yes.
Matt,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. All right, thanks for filling in.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, actually, stay there, please. What's your next? So next up is Linwood Andrews. And maybe you'd like to speak, well, you'd like to have the position.
I've been on, this will be my third term, so it's getting up there. And I'm involved in a number of projects, mostly at Milt Fry, in terms of developing greater biodiversity and sort of consolidating some of the things that we've done there, like build the vernal pool. We've put in bat houses, a kestrel nesting box. The invasives that are now taking over that field are a primary concern of mine. And that's sort of part of the biodiversity project. I'm hoping to write some grants for sort of weed pulling materials so that we can really make more progress against the buckthorn in there. And we're interested in developing an amphibian team sort of akin to the Hartford Salamander Project. If any of you are a Hartford Salamander team, we'd like to sort of coordinate with them, but have a Norwich component. So we'd like to get some materials for that, perhaps from the Women's Club, we'll see. So,
That's very exciting.
well, anyway, it keeps me busy.
That's great. Thank you. Are there questions or comments for Linwood? Marcia?
I'm just curious because the FERC licensing stuff
Yes.
is coming out, and so I should have asked Craig too, but I'm just wondering, are you guys thinking of another answer?
To the water quality for Vermont. Well, we kind of, I've been of two minds on that. This, of course, is not really part of the Conservation Commission, but, and for those of you who are new, Craig Lane and Ernie Ciccatelli, who was on the Planning Commission, and I wrote the Norwich response or comments to FERC. And now it's a 401 water quality review by New Hampshire and Vermont. So we could obviously make a comment to Vermont. And I went to the information meeting about that a while ago. And I've spoken to the Hanover River Conservancy about it. Our comments are automatically part of the received by the Vermont officials who do the water quality review. So I wasn't, there didn't really seem to be additional things. And since they were getting what our comments anyway, we didn't have a plan. But if you feel strongly, we can just resubmit the plan as is to kind of emphasize it. But that's what we would be doing if we had a response.
Over to you, I think.
All right.
Thank
Any
you.
other questions or comments?
No.
All right. I did.
Again, Bree's
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Bree.
It's again Bree. So all three of these people, Lindsay, Craig, and Linwood, are fantastic. Again, having worked with the Conservation Commission on the Conservation Commission and in my department, they've been great. Linwood, especially in guiding me to use more native plant species for our garden beds and things like that. And I think she's been wonderful. So I fully endorse her as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Is there a motion?
I move to appoint Linwood Andrews to the Conservation Commission for a term to expire on March 31st, 2029.
Is there a second?
Second. My turn.
Okay. All right, let's vote. Priscilla?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Marcia?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Next, appointments for the Developmental Review Board. It's an alternate seat. Is Alyssa close here? Or would someone like to speak for her? She did write a pretty comprehensive application. If you guys want to pull it up, and I believe she had worked in the planning in her former town where she lived.
Yeah.
And so she has extensive experience. Yeah, which is in her favor.
A strong application. I'm just wondering if she knew that we like to see people.
Oh, but I'm not sure.
Everyone was notified that that was
Okay,
a requirement for the request of the board.
well, this will depend on how comfortable people feel about that. I think it's a strong enough application that I would support it. So,
It's a
Marcia?
silly question. Anybody know her?
Yes.
Okay.
Old
She's
school
this-
Norwich family.
She's my neighbor.
I've seen her recently.
Okay.
Very high quality.
Okay. In that case, do we feel ready to move this one? Okay, could I have a motion?
I move to appoint Alyssa Close as alternate to the Development Review Board for a term to expire on April 30, 2026.
Is there a second?
Second.
Oh, now they're, you should say it. Okay, let's vote. Priscilla?
Yes.
Emo?
Yes.
Marcia?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Now, I think there's another slot for Developmental Review Board. Is there another application for that?
We didn't,
That I missed?
we didn't receive one.
Okay, it's just on the motion sheet as an extra then.
Yeah.
Can someone maybe check that just to make sure? We don't have anybody. Okay, so I'm gonna scratch that off. For the Energy Committee, there's there are 2 seats open, but we have Charles Linder has applied. Looks like Charles is here. Charlie? And would you like to speak to continuing for the Energy Committee?
Yeah, I've been on the committee, I think, 5 years. And the work I've done primarily on the committee is working on, part of our charge is to provide resources and encouragement to the residents to make changes in the kinds of energy they're using to move to clean energy technologies and to get off from fossil fuel. And so I've done quite a bit with that, setting up our face-to-face events at the transfer station and doing weekly posts that you may have noticed under Electrify Everything on a variety of topics. We have different themes through the year. and I've kind of helped set up, kind of trying to be comprehensive in the information that we provide. So I would like to continue doing that, and we have an event for April 26th at the library. It's part of Earth Weekend, and it's called Make a Home Action Plan, Ask a Neighbor. And we have 3 people from town who've done quite a bit of changes in transportation, home energy use, and representative from Efficiency Vermont coming for that. So that's
Very good.
the next thing up that I'd like to
Priscilla?
continue with. So
I have been impressed for a long time with how much outreach the Energy Commission or committee or whatever you are does. And the obvious enthusiasm and energy on the energy. I mean, I think it's great.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? Marcia?
I asked nervously, we're not recommending certain companies or products.
that was eliminated after a conversation I had with you. I was chairing the committee 4 years ago, and if you look at the website, you'll see that there are no specific. We do encourage people to sign up for CSAs with our Norwich farms.
I confess, I haven't looked at it lately, the website,
But
just had to ask the question. But you do a wonderful job and you're always present.
Kimo?
Yeah, nice to see you again. I have looked at the website and I had a question as to whether your committee website is on a town server or a separate, it seems like a separate,
it's a separate.
is that?
Does that happen? Are you asking?
Yeah, could we bring
Boy,
that?
I have so many things for you to
Oh,
delve into later, but that's a good question.
okay,
There's a communications.
yeah,
Yeah. when we get to that.
okay.
Keep that on the list, okay?
Okay, anyway, it was just a question.
I think that came about because there's a lot of information on that site. And Linda Gray is the one who is like our web manager. And it's constantly being upgraded. And there hadn't been the capacity on any town site to do what we do on that website.
Okay, something to look at maybe.
So, yeah, and this is why I was supporting a communications research project to identify things like this and coordinate. Marcia?
That was one of the sub issues for the handbook, because this isn't the only committee that uses a separate website.
All right.
But he's sitting there now.
Any
But it's very,
questions?
it's kind of like a mini library
Yeah,
of information.
yeah,
And very useful to people. So
okay. I don't see any hands up online. So let's, is there a motion for this one?
I move to appoint Charlie Lindner to the Energy Committee for a term to expire on March 31st, 2028.
Is there a second?
I'm happy to second that.
Okay. Priscilla, how do you vote?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, Kimo,
Yes,
Marcia?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
and I'm a yes. And thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Next, we have the Finance Committee. There are a couple of seats. Is Christy James here? Great.
Christy James, and I would be honored to serve on this particular committee because of my background, and I've been a resident here of Norwich for 40 years. I don't look that old, no. But I've been here a long time, a large landowner, and I would, now that I have a little bit more time that because I'm retired, I could spend time as in an advisory role and learning more about how things are run here in the town. And I've known Cheryl for a while. So I think that I could add a lot to this committee because of my background. I don't know if you probably had a chance to read it, but if you had any questions about that background, I'd be glad to answer them at this time.
Marcia?
I don't have any questions for you. Your background looks terrific. What I do have a question about is the committee itself.
Okay.
And whether I just don't understand how it's going to be used. We are a town manager form of government, and that means certain things in terms of oversight of departments. I also think that we need to have better outreach potentially with the community. Because I think that one of the things that we're going to have to address at some point is that in order to keep the services that we have at the level that they are, we're going to have budgets that are unattractive. And so at some point, I think the problem is going to be what services don't we fund? And I think that's going to take a lot of community outreach. But in the short term and right now, I'm just not sure how this committee would function. And so I'd sort of like to table this and just say, we need to sit down and think about how this is going to work. I mean, how do they actually talk to people? And, you know, they can't be going to departments, I don't think, and stepping on the toes of the town manager. I mean, he's got a statutory role.
Right.
So I'd like to sort of step back and look at this and see how we want it to be used.
I agree with that, by the way. I agree with you, what you're saying, Marcia, because I did recognize that as well. And I thought being on this committee, we could steer in that direction, become a little bit more structured. However, I don't know enough to tell you which way that's going, but this is what I thought, like you just said, that how do you communicate or be an advisory? Because I read the role and how do you, and the policies and how you could be an advisory to the various departments that you know, they come and report their needs to you, right? And then you go back and they deliberate and so forth, and then they present the final budget. That's so a lot of businesses are done that way, as you know. And where does the finance committee come into this? Are we at the table with you? We're advisory role. That's what we are. Or I guess, you know, if I was on the board, that's what you are as an advisory. And also you're also a liaison, lack of a better word, to the Marion Cross school budget, to the Dresden school budget. That's a big piece, right? Because our tax dollars are going to pay for that. And I think that a little bit more structure would be helpful, but that might be a strong word. I don't know. But stepping back, Marcia, like you said, would be beneficial just to kind of make sure we have a trajectory.
Kimo?
I'm reading that Norwich Finance is comprised of 3 to 7 Norwich residents. Right now, I think there are 3. Do we need a 4th to have a quorum? Does that apply to this committee?
Yeah, well, you do have to have a quorum to actually meet and deliberate, I believe.
Well, how can you have 3 to 7 if 4 is a quorum?
You can't have
To committee.
Yeah. Do we need the 4th, in other words, in order for the committee to function?
I see.
We have 3.
No, I don't think we do.
We have 3 applications for the finance committee and for many years, nobody was willing to do it because it was so distasteful.
Right. And then we had one person that we accepted who's been waiting for more people to join so that it could actually do some work. So are we up to 4? Let's see, I'm not counting very well. Brennan?
So just a comment. So I think if you had 3 people on a board, a quorum would be 2.
Yeah,
Of
true.
that board. I don't think there's if you have a maximum of 7, then that's the quorum would be 4, but I think it's dictated by how many people are serving at one time.
The confusion is that the minimum appears to be 4. Right.
3 to 7.
Oh, it's 3 to 7? Oh, okay.
Okay. So
Fine,
it
right?
can move and that's legal. Okay.
As far as the quorum piece of it. Did you have another question, Marcia?
Well, I just think that the confusion is in the charge.
Well, we could review the charge. Also, as Christy is saying, it is a huge piece to also consider the school budget. And I think somehow this used to be done in the past, even with town manager form of government. And, budgets would be reviewed and recommended and so forth. And it may be a good thing. You'd have to have highly qualified people who have a lot of energy, and you'd have to make sure the charge was clear. But I think it could be actually very beneficial, personally.
Just follow.
Okay, well, let me let Priscilla
Okay.
come in. and then we'll go
I
back.
think it would be really helpful to have finance committee because speaking for myself, at least on the board, I'm not, great with accounting and finances and stuff. And to have people who really are good at that, to be able to really look at it and say, yes, this is very sound, this makes sense, your assumptions are good, would be helpful. And that used to be the function back a long time ago. The finance committee would say, it'd be in the town report, we recommend this budget,
Mhm, I
or
remember
we have reservations and here's what they are. But it's sort of a helpful thing.
Right,
So I think it would be beneficial to, almost like consultants, us on the board who don't have such extensive backgrounds in finance. I think that would be helpful.
could be good as an advisory. Marcia, did you have a follow-up?
I'm just wondering, the charge that exists references the Marion Cross School and the Hanover something finance committee.
Address, yeah.
And I'm just wondering, what are they doing? Are they active? And I just think the whole thing needs to be investigated. I think that the people who've applied have excellent credentials. I just don't want to create a committee with no vehicle to drive.
Okay, I'll receive that comment. Any other comments or questions from the board before I go to the public here or to our treasurer? Cheryl?
Yeah, Cheryl Lindbergh, and a lot of the thoughts I have been mentioned. I think that the committee members that have been appointed, there's no reason to not continue to appoint individuals to this committee so that they can get together and discuss a move forward, get back to the select board and come up with some language or work on a plan as to what the committee will do. I can also share that the Hanover Finance Committee has waited years for the Norwich Finance Committee to be reconstituted so that they can become the Dresden Finance Committee, which is in the compact. So there is a group that is interested in seeing the Norwich Finance Committee also getting reconstituted. So I would urge you to move forward with appointments.
Thank you. Priscilla?
And Hanover also has a town manager form of government. I mean,
Yes.
it's a different state, but I mean,
Right,
it doesn't
and a
seem to be
larger
incompatible.
budget, but yes,
Yeah,
way larger.
I mean, it's New Hampshire, it's not Vermont, but.
Right. Marcia?
I also think you have to be careful. I mean, what Cheryl's describing is kind of, to me, the tail wagging the dog. We're looking for help, right? And to the extent that they have knowledge about how to do this, presumably better than we do, that would be useful. But again, it's got to fit in with the town manager. And so I think we have to sort of get our heads around what we want and ask questions and then be able to make a charge, but not have the charge developed for us.
Well, the charge exists, I think.
Oh, I know, but I don't think it's a good one.
All right, well, we might have to disband the committee to do that, I think. I'm not sure. But Brennan, did you have a,
I was just going to
Comment?
point out that Lily has got a hand up on the.
okay. Lily, would you like to speak?
Hi, I just wanted to echo what Cheryl said, and that the Hanover Finance Committee is a robust committee that advises the school board at budget season. And I believe that Norwich would really benefit from something that draws the school board and the select board together and examines both the budgets, because everybody seems to forget the school budget is, the bulk of your taxes, and yet the select board, and the school board never really communicate to each other. So even if it's just through a finance committee, I think that could be really beneficial to Norwich, especially in understanding where our taxes go. Thanks.
Thank you. Other comments from the public or the board? All right.
Would you be open for motion?
Yes, Kima?
I'm having trouble discerning how it would be a negative thing to have more members on the finance committee while these discussions are being held. Is there something I don't understand about?
Negative.
In other words, we could appoint members, have a larger group, have a larger discussion.
Yes, I mean, it's already has a charges committee.
Yeah.
It already has defined what a quorum is.
Okay.
And basically what, as an advisory board for both the municipal budget and the education budget and the Dresden. So it does have a charge. I think there's just been concern expressed that it may, go in a direction that would create issues for the town manager, but I don't, I think that's a matter of judgment.
Okay, thank you.
Marcia?
I think if this is, I don't have a problem appointing people, but I do think we should be stepping back and looking at how this is going to work. And I think that they shouldn't be doing stuff, even though we do have a charge. To me, it has the potential for going afoul of our town manager form of government. I don't think it's appropriate for them to start I'm using the word interrogating as they use in law for questioning departments about stuff at this point until we sort of have a better grasp of what it is that we want them to do and how they would help the town manager in the formation of a budget. I just don't want them to be a hindrance.
Okay. Oh, Cheryl?
Yes, I would just like to say we have community members that would like to serve the town in front of you. And had this not been something you wish to have advertised, looking for members to fill the finance committee, then I have wished the select board had pulled this and not gone through and having this discussion now in front of, obviously great candidates. And I think you can work with a finance committee soon to resolve any concerns you have, but you've posted these as open positions and people have applied. And I think it's great to get back to the consideration of the
Right, and I think that the finance committee, that opening that we have put out there is for an established committee. It has members, it has a definition. And so if there's risk, we don't know what the research will be, but how can you move forward without research really in an intelligent way? Well, let's see, one more from Marcia.
I'm just wondering if the town manager has any thoughts.
Okay, does the town manager have an opinion about whether this would?
I guess I don't know. We haven't had this in my tenure, right? So I've been here for 3 budgets. The first one just kind of watching, and then 2 where we've developed it. And it's a lot of work. I mean, Barry, our finance director, and I and department heads spent 4 months on this. So I'm not certainly opposed to like guidance or, if people have meaningful ideas to talk with them about that. I could see this creating additional effort and work to put a budget together throughout the process, depending on, again, the agenda or the focus of the committee, which I couldn't ascertain right now.
So perhaps there might be some requests of departments for information or get in the way of decisions that are being made or?
Well, I guess I think all of that funnels through the town manager. Like, I think it would probably not make a whole lot of sense to have an outside committee of appointed people questioning the department heads about decisions. So there would have to be a buffer of a town manager interacting with a committee of advisors. And I think that's possible to do. it could either go very well or it could go very poorly. I could see both ways.
All right, so there's some risk. I think Marcia had mentioned if we want to maintain the same level of service in this town, it's going to be expensive. So what would our choices be if we needed to really drastically cut? How would we do that? And that might be more of a strategic planning exercise, which I think financial people might be quite good at, to provide advice on a more long-term basis. We don't want to add, work for our employees in developing budget, but they might have some really good ideas about, well, let's kind of extend this to the future. Let's see, what would solve the problem. You know, people have talked about developing more affordable housing and bringing more students, for instance, play with that idea. What could we do to reduce the tax burden and keep the services? That kind of question, I think, would be great to have researchers working on that sort of thing. And I'm not sure how much we have to define the charge to get that kind of request. But I think maybe the town manager, we could just enable him to say no if it's holding up the normal budget process. I think we just say no. They have to do the research a different way, or, you know, have to do it after the other work is done or something like that. Put some boundaries around it. Marcia?
Well, if we proceed with the what do you call it, nominations for tonight, could we next meeting have a look at the charge? Because things like the word oversight is troublesome.
Sure. We could put it as
Put it on as an
agenda item. Okay. Okay. With that said, I would like to hear a motion.
I move to Mr. James to the Finance Committee for a term to expire on, when it's supposed to expire.
Oh, March.
That's what I didn't know.
Yeah.
Oh,
Why?
oh dear.
I did see that.
Brennan, can you help with that?
I cannot at the moment. I didn't catch that we wouldn't.
Can you just say 1 year? Or do you have to have a
Let's say
different motion?
like that one year.
2020, okay, so I move to appoint Christy James to the Finance Committee for a term to expire on March 31st, 2026. What's that?
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, let's have a vote. Priscilla,
Yes.
Timo,
Yes.
Marcia?
Yes.
Okay. Matt?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. And thank you for
Thank
your
you.
patience. That's gonna be great.
But all of you had very good points about,
Right.
basically is what I saw as well. You know, from when I was reading, and oversiight's a little strong. It is. And I was the president of the National Radiology Business Management Association. And it's somewhat similar, whereas they have the executive director and you have, there's all these committees and then they present to the executive director, but.
Thank you for stepping up.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
She had a second item on her application. Did you happen to notice?
A second item.
She's,
Appointment.
she's
Representing.
she's, no, she's applied for 2 positions, trustee of public.
Oh, okay.
So maybe, do we want to do that now, or do we want to do that?
don't see the word
We could, if the,
It's not.
I see it on our motion.
It's on the motion.
So for the rest of the board, Christie is also applying to be on the trustees of public funds. It's a little, I guess it's our last entry on our motion sheet.
No,
Isn't it? Or
it's on page,
before?
top of page 2 of 4.
It's, yes, it is. Yeah, it's right before Huntley Meadows Court projects. So
And that one does have a term.
Don't trust them. That's like-
does everyone see where that motion is? Or do you want to
Yes.
hear what it said or let's, Christie, do you mind coming back up? And then this time, put your other hat on for why you are interested in trustee of public funds.
Why?
I mean, you know, just
Kind of goes hand in hand. Well, I don't know. It doesn't really go hand in hand with finance, but I thought it would be learning a little bit more about the town and so there wasn't, I think you met once a year, twice a year. Right. So just looking at the funds and how they're, you know, from the bank perspective and so forth. But isn't that the town manager? Don't you look at that as well?
the investments of the.
Investments and stuff like that? Or do you rely on the,
Oh, yeah.
do you rely on the public?
No, I have a question about it, actually. Because I'm trying to remember back to the audit. Wasn't there a question of bringing that budgetary process back within the larger framework of the town?
Yeah, I saw that. No.
And that, so that might be, you know, something to think about. And the other thing is thinking about I think there's some green lending that's been going on. And that is probably fine, but it kind of makes me a little nervous because it sounds like a bank.
Yeah.
It sounds like sort of a very tiny bank where I would rather, that those funds were invested with a bank.
Real bank.
Or, yeah, an actual bank. So, that's just something, that's my personal view of it. I think you'd be great for this as well. Does anyone have questions about Christie serving this role? Or comments?
I have time. No,
I don't know. That's
I'm just,
time
sure.
to serve.
Oh, I'm sure I have time
Okay.
because the finance committee is going to be very busy. No.
Yeah. Well, maybe not. I don't know.
There's be determined.
Yeah.
Would you like a motion?
Yes, please.
I move to appoint Christy James to the position of trustee of public funds for a term to expire on March 3rd, 2026.
Okay.
Can I ask why some are the 3rd, some are the 31st, some are the,
It's probably election. Is that election day?
Town meeting.
Next town meeting?
I don't think so.
Second.
Hopefully not. Typos. Okay, we got it.
Chemo seconds.
And let's vote here. So,
Yes.
Chemo,
Yes.
Marcia,
Yes.
Matt,
Yes.
and I'm a yes, and thank you.
oh, thank you.
All right, let's move back. Now we're moving back again to the Finance Committee, and this is Stephen Hepburn has written a statement. He could not be here tonight. Read his statement. I'm unable to appear virtually or in person at the next select board meeting due to work travel, but I would like to express my strong interest in serving on the Norwich Finance Committee. My primary objective in joining the committee would be to review and evaluate budgets through a lens of fiscal responsibility, transparency, and alignment with the priorities set by the select board, informed by the town manager and department heads. I also believe in the value of comparing our budget decisions to those made by similar towns, helping to ensure that Norwich continues to make prudent and balanced financial choices. With professional experience in managing complex, high-value software projects and a background in municipal budgeting during my time on the Guildford, New Hampshire Budget Committee, I bring both technical and practical insight to this work, hope to support the Finance Committee's mission by contributing thoughtful, informed perspectives to budgeting discussions, always with the town's long-term interests in mind. Thank you for your consideration. And would anyone like to vouch for Stephen, who's here tonight, or? I don't see. Does anybody know him or have met him? Mhm.
Yeah, and I think I would be supportive, so I'll make the motion.
Okay.
I move to appoint Stephen Hepburn to the Finance Committee for a term to expire on March 31, 2026.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. We'll have a vote. Priscilla,
Yes.
Emo,
Yes.
Marcia,
Yes.
Matt,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Okay,
Who seconded?
it was Matt. Matt.
Yes, sir. Quiet.
Our next appointee or candidate for the Finance Committee is Patricia Spellman. Hey there.
How are you?
Good.
So I've lived in
Yeah,
Norwich
that's nice.
for
Hang on, Matt.
15 years.
Excuse me, Patricia. Let's make sure people are listening here. Ready to listen?
Lived in Norwich for 14 years. And, didn't realize that committee actually hadn't really met. But look, I'm excited to join. Have over 30 years of finance experience in nonprofits and government. Work at Dartmouth College as the CFO at their School of Engineering. Understand fund accounting very well. So look forward to serving on the committee if chosen.
All right,
Answering questions.
thank you. Are there questions or comments?
I think we're really fortunate to have candidates of this caliber stepping forward to a committee that was defunct for so long.
Yes.
Didn't realize that.
I agree that the charge probably could be clearer and happy to help work on that if needed.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? The head's nodding. It's mostly that direction. Yes. Kim?
I'm only worried the amount of expertise that's in this room alone seem to threaten to maybe take over the town.
Don't worry about that. I have a full-time job. I don't.
Life.
But I think it makes sense to have another set of eyes looking at things.
This is amazing.
All right.
I move to appoint Patricia Spellman to the Finance Committee for a term to expire on March 31st, 2026.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. We'll have a vote. Priscilla?
Yes.
Chemo?
Yes.
Marcia?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Unanimous.
Thank you.
Right, for the planning commission, I don't think we have anyone for that one. For trails committee, Brian Kunz, is he here? Hi.
Dartmouth is well presented tonight.
What's that?
Dartmouth is well.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, I would like to be on the Trails Committee. I think trails are really important to the community. They should be well maintained. They should be well marked and well signed. And new ones should be well planned and well designed. So I think I could help with that.
Questions for Brian? Comments?
You do a good job on the outcome.
Okay. And I have,
I have one question. You served on the Conservation Commission for one term 10 years ago.
Yeah,
Didn't return?
I was busy at work.
Okay.
Got busy. Yeah.
any other questions or comments? I'll take a motion.
I move to appoint Brian Kunz to the Trails Committee for a term to expire on March 31st, 2028.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Priscilla, how do you vote?
Yes.
Chemo?
Yes.
Marcia?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. That's quick. That was good. Thank you for stepping up. Alrighty. So that closes out our appointments.
Can I say one thing?
Sure.
I'd just like to thank everyone that applied for this. It's incredible how much experience we have in the town and just reading through everybody's kind of like limited resumes here. I feel like we're really fortunate that these committees are well staffed and I think it makes everyone's job easier when everyone contributes. So,
Thanks.
yeah, I didn't want to say thank you every single time, but there's a lot of gratitude here, especially for the long-term members who've been sticking with it for a super long time. Thank you.
Okay, and I'm remembering that when we were approving our agenda, that we were going to talk about correspondence from Alice.
Alicia Grubb, well,
Alicia Grubb.
the fire district.
Yes, the fire district.
And officers on this.
Okay, hang on a minute. I want to,
Is this 4A?
I guess it's going to have to be 4A and we're going to have a 4B as well. Let's see. So we should draft writing to request an agenda item, which I did not, because I thought it should come through at the next meeting, but since there was interest this time, I kind of moved it in here. As of February 26th, and this is from correspondence, the Prudential Committee has had a vacancy for its third member, as one of our elected members resigned for personal reasons. According to Vermont State Statute 20 VSA 2485, a vacancy in such committee may be filled at an annual meeting or at a special meeting called for that purpose, but the select board of the town in which such district is located may fill a vacancy in such committee until an election by the appointment of a residents of such districts. So I was talking this over with Brennan, and we're both wondering, why doesn't the fire district just call a special meeting to elect a new person? We just didn't understand. So, does someone like to speak to that as stand officer? Jim, can you speak to that, please?
Yeah, sure. I mean, we certainly could. It was, I think, two reasons we thought this was the easier path. One is, I guess, it's just precedent. This is how we've done it before. I mean, before my time with the fire district, I guess this happened a couple of times, and there's been a process that we just get approval from the select board and fill the candidate spot and move on. So I think that was the major consideration, is just that's how it's always been done. Secondly, I think there's a consideration if we basically just had our elections and sort of an unfortunate timing. One of our PC members, we had elections in January, very recently, and then it just didn't work out. He has some other commitments and so needed to step down. And so we could call another meeting, but it would effectively involve all the warnings that went into our annual meeting, and it's just a little bit cumbersome to do that. We certainly could. It was just, we figured that if we posted the job or posted the role and sought any interest, and then went this route, it would be a little easier for everyone. So we did post it for a couple of weeks. Unfortunately, no one expressed any interest. And so Zach Courier, who is the clerk, has expressed interest. They're currently our clerk. He expressed interest in the role, and he's been a good clerk for a couple of years now, at least. And so we figured this would be the easiest path to fill the role. But if it's, not something you guys want to approve, then we can go a different route and go through the annual meeting or go through a special meeting and do that as well.
Marcia?
The statute is permissive. It allows us to do this. But I'm disinclined because I feel we just don't, aside from getting bills from the fire district for a group of 5 people in another, municipality to be making a decision, I think it should be a vote for the people who live in that municipality.
I agree with that, and that's why, I didn't immediately put it in with appointments. But are there other comments from the board, Sarah?
The Prudential Committee is 3 people, and so they're down to 2. And I think you can imagine that with just 2, it's a little more difficult to function, especially if something comes up for somebody. Zach is a wonderful candidate. And it would be faster and more efficient. A lot of people who live in the fire district don't seem to understand what the fire district is, or even that they live in it. And we have an annual meeting and we send out, we've got 300 and some households in the fire district. We send out all this stuff, and we might have 12 people at the annual meeting, including the Prudential Committee, the clerk, the treasurer, the auditor. I mean, I don't think this is so unrepresentative compared to the annual meetings that we have.
Okay.
And I'd be in favor of just getting it done so that they can function better.
Is there any reason, even if people don't show up, that the officers couldn't warn a special meeting?
Well, they can do that.
I mean, it's possible to have a special meeting,
Yes.
right? Like let's say that all the fire district officers, I don't know, sank in a shipwreck. There's none left. Then I would think,
Sounding like me.
well, I know, I'm being like, whatever, but it just noticing that the statute is permissive, it allows us to do this, but I just think that the fire district people should step up and do it. It's like, who is affected by the decisions of the fire district? The people who live in it. And isn't it more democratic to do it that way? So that's my personal view.
Well, nobody has stepped up except Zach, and they have been advertising it.
Okay, well, it sounds as though it could happen, right? I mean, it's a vote of the existing board too, or not? You have to have a certain number of.
No, there's no quorum for an annual meeting, or I guess a special meeting.
Special meeting.
It's whoever shows up.
Okay, but when you are appointing a new officer, is that by a vote of membership, or is it by a vote of the existing officers, or what? How does that work? Cheryl, can you shed Cheryl Lindbergh, can you come up and explain the process to us, please?
Yes,
Thank you.
happy to. So the reason that the select board is involved in the legislative appointment, a legislative appointment of the fire district is because the select board created the fire district. So the legislative body is the level at which the select board would be involved in an appointment to fill until, just like you're doing with the other open appointment, open positions, you're filling it until the next election. This is a much quicker process than to warn meetings. Think about it, let Lily weigh in, how to go about a whole meeting, 45 days and sending out notices. This has been the tradition in this town that the select board gets the request and a recommendation from the current prudential committee who provides them with a candidate as a recommendation. And it, I believe, has happened during your tenure as a select board member, because this isn't the first time. It's happened several times. And therefore, once the legislative body is a complete body, the clerk position that Zach will vacate can be filled by the prudential committee. So you're just giving assistance to a fellow municipality, a group that could use your support tonight to make this happen and let them move forward quickly and easily, as opposed to a lengthy, tedious process. And I think that's what I would recommend to the select board on their behalf.
So when you say that this third person would have to be elected before, I mean, are you saying that you cannot move forward unless we approve, we appoint another person?
What I'm saying is that this is the most expeditious way to do it.
Right.
And it's very cumbersome to spend time on something that can happen easily with the select board. And it's been the tradition that has happened this way in the past.
Okay, so there is a precedent.
Yeah.
It's easier for the fire district.
Yeah.
It's onerous to warn special meetings, but it also is the duty of a municipality to do so when it's needed. So
If we had a special meeting on the horizon, we wouldn't have requested this. I know they would have done this as a second piece to a special meeting, but there's no special meetings of the fire district planned at this time. So it would mean
it's not
doing
going
it.
to overlap with one
Yeah.
you already have. You'd have to do the work to.
And the discussion was had at our meeting, their meeting. I was at that, and it seemed like the most expeditious, since you were doing appointments within the town, that it fit right into that
There's been a precedent.
agenda item and made sense to get it in and request it with the due date, which they did get it in by, from my understanding. They got you the memo in time for being considered. So
Okay.
that was that.
Thank you.
Anything
Cheryl.
else?
So
I sort of get the feeling as though the board seems to think that the fire district is this group of strangers and aliens. We are living among you. We are also
neighbors.
Norwich residents, we vote for everything else in town. But only us can vote. Only we can vote for things like fire district. And only we have to pay an additional property tax for the privilege of living in the fire district.
it's true. There are many issues with the fire district, as we know. Larger, just they're global issues, but this is about an appointment. So, Kimo?
I can't find any harm in acting on this personally, although I can understand your reasoning, but I'd like to move that we, I'm trying to think of the wording, that we appoint Zach
Courier.
Courier to fill the Prudential Committee member, to fill the vacancy on the membership.
Okay. Okay, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Any other discussion or comment? Did you have something, Brennan?
Well, I guess my only comment, this is actually a question because I wasn't sure. So this maybe for Daniel, through the chair, was the the person who has resigned recently after the election, was he just recently reelected to the term and then resigned a few weeks later? I guess that's my question is, I had
Yeah.
had previous conversations and I thought it was fairly well known he was not going to run again. At least that's what he had told me. And I think it mentioned in a board meeting. So I was just kind of surprised at the timing.
Are we speaking of Zach Courier?
No, we're
No.
talking about the gentleman who was on the Prudential Committee, was elected I guess elected in January and then resigned in February.
Okay,
For personal reasons.
okay. All right, well, we've got a motion and a second. Oh, Marcia?
I just think that the characterization that we'd be, bad actors if we didn't help a municipality, a separate municipality do something is really incorrect. We have nothing to do with this oversight. And yet, whether or not in the past some boards went forward and made an appointment, it doesn't bind us to do that. This is the statute controls and it's permissive. This was created years and years and years ago by the select board. It may now not be necessary. It may be an added burden to the people who are in the fire district. There's lots of problems, as we know. And we get faced with the problems when they can't pay for things and, I'm not going to go over the issues, but I think this is within their wheelhouse. They can definitely do their duty and have an election. It's just uncomfortable to do it.
So I think it's very unfair to characterize the fire district as having a lot of problems and being unable to pay its bills. It's extremely well run. It's very frugal. There is a point of contention with the town over what the fire protection fee should be, but that's not because they couldn't, they could just increase the taxes to pay it. But I think there tends to be an attitude that the fire district is not well run and, a problem. And if you've actually been to their meetings, this isn't the case.
All right, we can get the finance committee to study it or strategic planning.
Can I just ask, I think we began this by noting that like four of the 5 members on the select board don't live within the fire district.
Mhm.
And I think that I hadn't looked at it through that lens, but it does make me uncomfortable weighing it, like putting a person on their board who we don't necessarily know.
Yeah.
And essentially representing the people that live in the fire district. Well, we don't live in the fire district.
Mhm.
And but I understand that this ask has been made for convenience sake, because they could warn a special meeting and just do exactly what they're asking us to do for them, but have them, all support it. So I guess that this boils down to like how much of an inconvenience, does this sort of stop operations for them for the next 45 days? Or if they already have 2 members and they only normally have a 3-member group, can they just keep moving on? Like how much of an inconvenience is this?
Shall we ask Dan, officer?
Yeah. I was just addressing you so that you can.
Yes, yeah. Dan, would you like to speak to that? Is this going to stop operations?
Yeah, sure.
To not have it, Phil?
Well, I guess a couple things. So just to answer Brennan's question from earlier, essentially, you're right. It was there's a little bit of wavering, wasn't going to run, then decided to run, and then unfortunately, after being elected, realized that just didn't have the time capacity to be on the Prudential Committee, and so had to step down for personal reasons. And so we were left pretty soon after having had the annual meeting and the annual elections without a Prudential Committee member, which I think in part was, first was just largely precedent why we came to select board. But second was also just because we had just gone through the annual meeting and there were no other candidates running for this position. We posted it as empty for a couple of weeks. No one expressed any interest. I do agree, actually, it is sort of like a funky setup It's just the law in the state of Vermont, I guess, provides this mechanism for the select board to go through this. It is sort of funky, but that's power that's vested from the state, not from the select board or the fire district, I guess. But in any case, would it stop us? I mean, no. I mean, in theory, we could run the Prudential Committee with 2 members. We'd have a quorum. It would just be one fewer member than an already small committee. And so we prefer not to, but if there's, reluctance from the select board to move this through for some reason, we certainly could operate with 2 Prudential Committee members and go through an effort of a meeting. It's just extra process, extra time, and extra burden for, what most likely will result in the exact same outcome.
Okay, thank you. Cheryl, very brief, please.
Want me to come back up here?
Yeah, come back up, but please make it brief because
I
Just would like to comment on the fact that while there's only one select board member in the fire district, that's not an uncommon situation for the town to have. That the request to appoint a particular person who has been involved and is representing the fire district in his capacity as clerk and done a great job, and his mother was on the Prudential Committee previously, there's a sincere interest in serving on the Prudential Committee by Zach Courier. And I would speak highly of him and recommend him to the select board in that he would do a great job representing the fire district as a Prudential Committee member. So I would like to have that be some comfort. I know others in the fire district also know Zach, and just provide some comfort in an appointment of him.
that you recommend. Okay. All right, I think we should vote on this. Priscilla, how do you vote?
Yes.
Okay, Chemo
Yes.
and Marcia
No.
and Matt.
Yes.
Okay, and I'm a no. So, all right. So Zach can serve, and we've now are going to move to speak about the other piece of correspondence, which was from Farrell, I believe, about the town service officer. John, can you step up? So the correspondence, I was noting that he has served in the past as town service officer from 2017.
Excuse me, could you speak up? I have a hearing
Okay.
deficit.
Yes, I was looking at your correspondence and noticing, it says you have served as the town service officer from 2017 to 2021. So you've served in that capacity. And there was a certain way it was done when you served.
That's correct.
And then it may be different now under our town manager, but I noticed you said that you might be willing to serve again according to how the service is provided. So I wanted to hear about, I know you've outlined the way it used to be, like to hear from the town manager about how it is now and kind of see what that, see if it's possible to serve in the manner that our town manager has it organized now. Is there much of a difference between what John has described and what the current practice is? And
So, yeah, I guess there is. So I think when I read the charge of the town service officer here, it's really, I'll just read it. The town service officer is charged with assisting individuals within the town who require emergency food, fuel, or shelter assistance. So those are kind of like 3 basic human needs there. And emergency, I think, being also kind of a key piece of that. So I think in the critique that was in the packet, John, you had said you felt it was more cumbersome to go through kind of the vetting of a person's financials. And I think in some cases, you might be correct if it was, we need $500 to put oil in our tank because we're going to run out of oil. For the situation that came up here most recently, where the board at the town manager's recommendation awarded funding, I think it was less of an emergency situation as far as the payment went, And I thought it was due diligence on the part of the town manager's office, the town, to make sure that there was no other means of paying for some of the services that eventually the town decided were going to be taken from that assistance fund. So to me, probably every situation is a little bit different, and we want to be able to act quickly. And for a lesser amount of funding or an emergency situation, I think we probably could. I do think it is a good idea for the town service officer to have some discretion, but also to do diligence on whether other resources have been tapped or whether there might be means of the applicant paying for some of the services, some of the costs that's being requested.
I agree.
You should probably just, I was looking at you when I spoke, but it is kind of
I have to address
a process of the chair.
I agree with what you're saying for the most part. Can I give you a little background from my letter? It won't take too much time. I went down to Canaan. They have a 22-page application. Yeah. I went to the city of Lebanon and they have a 12-page application, but both of those organizations were funded by taxpayer money. The Citizens Assistance Fund is not funded by taxpayer money. It's funded by the bottle collection and can collection. And basically, when I talk to the person who collects the bottles and sends money to the town, it runs between $600 and $800 every 6 or 8 months from the redemption of the bottles. I have not seen the Citizen Assistance Fund grow over the years. It's always remained almost constantly at $7,000. Lately, it's been reduced a little bit because that last
award, maybe. Yeah.
So I think it's kind of almost self-defeating. I know you have your fund here or your application here, but basically I find it rather invasive. You want to know so much personal information for something that is so simple, in my opinion, and I don't disagree with you on a larger amount. That's not an issue, but usually the emergency funds are $200-300 for oil or back rent when you're going to be evicted. In one case, it was wood that I arranged to have delivered to someone. The state mandates that we have a town service officer, and there hasn't been one for a couple of years. I am willing to take on that responsibility again. If the caveat is that there's a certain cutoff monetary number, I'm fine with that. But it is an emergency assistance fund. And I think that it's almost self-defeating to have a person fill out all this personal information.
All right, Brendan?
So I would say we would love to have a health service officer here, town service officer. I think there certainly could be some discretion built into how much of that form is required for things that are at a lesser amount, and we could make a threshold and an emergency where it needs to be done like the next day or the next.
Does that have to be formalized, or it would be, if I want to be a town service officer, could I come to you and say it's $300? That's okay, but it's $5,000. Well, yeah,
if I may.
Different story.
So I would suggest we would, again, if you chose to be, appointed, and I think you'd have to, submit an application for a future meeting probably, but I think we could certainly, and I'd be happy to come up with a reasonable number where the deep vetting of somebody's ability to pay for their own cost would be much lower in an emergency, something where there was
some reasonable cutoff number.
So we could have some thresholds there, maybe. Sure. How invasive we need to be based on the amount of money being requested.
Okay, so my question was that I think the process should be streamlined because it is an emergency type fund. The other question I have is, how is the accounting done on this? I know from the person who does the bottle redemption, it was $600 to $800 a month. If you take the lowest number, 600 a month, $7,200 a year, year after year going into that account. I don't know the accounting procedures, money in, money out. You don't have to name names, but $500 out, person A or something like that. But I don't know how it's accounted for. Does anyone?
Well, that would be a town manager.
Yeah, so we just discussed this when we made the last award. We hadn't, I think, had anybody come in requesting funding for quite some time. I think it had at some point, and I don't know how long this has been going on, where we were not collecting those bottle fees. So there was no money going into that fund to kind of build it.
That went into the general fund?
It was going into the general fund. So
that's been rearranged now, goes into the.
It's probably surplus.
I was going to continue. So there was a recent motion of the board that was going to reinstate the bottle funds going into this emergency assistant fund. So again, whatever has happened here where that stopped going on for a period of time, I think that is in case true. But I think we have now rectified that where we will be now, again, building the fund by bottle redemption, monies that come into the town.
And could I ask just a minute, Brennan?
Yes.
Is there a line item for this?
Yes, I believe
Around
that-
7,000?
It's a designated fund.
It's not 7,000, that's 5, but I don't.
Okay.
It's about 5, a little over 5,000 now.
Okay, it sounds to me as though maybe John and Brennan could talk and maybe come back so that we know what transpired.
Well, I would suggest this, if you're interested, why don't we try to meet before the next board meeting?
Okay.
If we can come to an agreement that you'd like to serve and that you're comfortable doing so, we can have an application so you could be appointed.
I'm fine with that. I have 4 years' experience of doing it, so I think that would be good.
It would be great if you would do it, and we appreciate your willingness.
Okay, so I will get in touch with you. We'll arrange a meeting. Is there a best time?
Why don't you call the town manager's office either tomorrow or Friday?
That's what
That's right. Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Welcome.
You can.
Having a little technical interlude here. That's okay. The next agenda item will be the Huntley Meadows Court projects. And Brennan, would it be appropriate to ask Bree to speak to this?
It would, since
She's
Bree is still here, I believe, yes. Maybe I'll just set it up for Bree here.
Okay.
So this is a request coming because we thought it would be helpful to have any discussion about objections to moving forward with the resurfacing of the tennis courts and installation of an outdoor basketball court now before the effort goes into creating an RFP, issuing an RFP, receiving bids. So with that set up, I will let Bree speak more about the request.
Okay. I'm here. So for, I don't know, about 3 or 4 years now, we've been reviewing the tennis courts at the LCT and our tennis resurfacing company. And we were able to normally resurface on our normal 3 to 4 year cycle until about 2 years ago when VCLT said that the cracks and the peelings were too extensive and they wanted to close the courts. And so I brought in another resurfacing company and they also agreed that the cracks underneath the surfacing, if you've been on the tennis courts, there's a kind of, it's kind of almost like a rubberized surface over the concrete. The cracks that are underneath that have become too wide for them to keep just refilling and resurfacing. So they said that they would no longer be resurfacing. They wanted us to do some kind of, kind of reconstruction of the courts. So in talking with our Vermont tennis surface company, the one we've been using for years now, they said that we could put an overlay on the courts and then they would resurface them. So looking at that, we have now enough money, hopefully, in the tennis court fund, from what I can see, to add an overlay to the court and then resurface the courts to bring them back up to their normal 4 courts and 4 pickleball courts. At the same time, I would like to put out the RFP to also include a basketball court right next to the tennis courts in front of the pavilion, not just to add another facility, but also to keep some of the use of the tennis courts that are not primarily for tennis. Like, you know, people go down there to ride bikes with their kids, teach their kids how to ride bikes or roller skate and things like that, and have that another, you know, piece of asphalt surfacing next to the tennis courts for them to be able to use for that purpose, which should extend the life of the tennis court surface itself. So we'd like to put out an RFP to explore the repaving of the tennis courts and the installation of a basketball court next to the Huntley Pavilion. We do have 2 donated basketball backboards and nets already, so that is not in the cost. This is just for the paving. So we'd like to explore that and then come back to the select board with whatever bids we get after we've chosen one to come to you with the final plan for our feedback on that.
Okay, questions for Bree? Timo?
Yeah, just a quick question. Would the proposed basketball court have a fence like the tennis courts, or would it just be an open court?
It would be an open court, and that is a decision made because it actually mirrors what we have up at the Marion Cross Town Greens basketball court. It's not obtrusive. You know, it doesn't look like a cage with the basketball courts. It kind of fits the Huntley Meadows feel of, you know, not adding something that's, I don't know, too urban looking. It's just a relaxed court. People can go right from the pavilion over there.
Marcia?
And the location is, I assume no trees will be cut, but the location would be on the side that's closer to the parking lot as opposed to the other side?
No, actually, it would be to the west of the Hemlocks. So it would be right in front of the pavilion. It would run east-west. So the basketball net, one would be at the Hemlocks and the other would be about 40, 50 feet over from there. It'd be pretty small. Oh, sorry, other way, 80 feet.
So I'm sorry, is that between the playground and the pavilion?
No, it is in the front of the pavilion. Right in front of the pavilion. So you wouldn't be able to tell that there's a basketball court there as you're looking down from the parking lot, because it would just be a small bit of pavement in front of the pavilion pavement.
Sounds intriguing. Any other questions or comments, Priscilla?
This is related, and I don't know if you want to talk about this here or there, but I got a little tangled up because Bree says in her memo, the fund currently holds a balance of $125,000 or so. And yet we had all these pages from, you know, all these financial reports, and it has a, you know, a thing for a tennis court fund. And it says 80,000. And I'm like, I don't understand. So I went to the town report and saw what we thought we had in the tennis court fund as of the end of last year. And then you add the 75 that was put into it. And it's like, oh, okay. But it makes me wonder, what's the point of getting a report like this that doesn't actually show me what's in the fund?
This is why I have this communications idea for later in the agenda. There's so many things like this.
So, I mean, you know, maybe you don't want to bring this up now, but it's just like,
I want to bring it later for sure.
okay, I just got frustrated
Yes.
because, you know, we had masses of financial data and I'm going, wait, these two things don't match up and I have to go to my town report to make it match. It's like, huh?
Yep.
I have another question.
Kimo?
We're asking for an RFP now, and once we get responses back, we'll ask for the actual spending.
Yes.
Yeah, so.
Yeah,
That's
again, just to be clear, so all we're doing is getting kind of the go-ahead from the board that people are supportive of the project. Then we're gonna issue an RFP that's created, we'll get bids, we'll go through the whole process, and then we would come back with a recommendation for the vendor that would be building the project.
Because we approve the spending.
Yeah.
So,
I'd like to move to authorize.
okay, there's one comment.
There's one question. So we have a pre-approval for 75,000. Are you and the fund holds a larger balance? Are you expecting that the cost to us is going to be less than the 75,000 or just somewhere between 75 and what the fund currently holds?
So what the previous paving estimate that I got is far below 75,000. So I got about 39,000 last year from Blacktop, but it needs to go out for 3 bids, and I hadn't added the basketball court into there yet, and that's without the tennis court resurfacing, which is still under 40,000. So we should be okay.
All right. Is there a motion?
Yes, I move to authorize the town manager.
There's a public comment.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, come on up.
Yeah, Pam Smith. I recall at a select board meeting on November 8 of 2023, when the board was asked to approve $75,000 for the tennis court appropriation that year, that we were told that there would be $75,000 in donations and $150,000 in grants that would be forthcoming. And that would provide us with about $310,000, which would cover the $300,000 that was anticipated to redo the tennis court. So I'm just wondering how we're now coming down to such a smaller amount, and what happened with the grants and the donations that were projected.
So Pam, in that
that?
same meeting, I also said that it would be about $150,000 if we went with the shorter term project. And when I went back to USTA, they no longer had that grant application form out for $155,000 or $50,000 worth of grant funding for a tennis court. So that is no longer available through USTA, which is what I was looking at and who I was working with.
Okay, so we're going to go with a lesser repair on the tennis courts and not the full-blown replacement that I guess was projected.
We've granted 3, yes.
That is correct. And that is also why the idea of adding the basketball court or another asphalt surface next to it to lessen the use of the tennis court for non-tennis use purposes was added.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yep, thank you, Pam. All right. Any other comments? I think we're good. You want to restart the motion there?
Third time's the charm.
Okay.
Move to authorize the town manager to issue an RFP for repaving the Huntley Meadows tennis courts and adding a basketball court adjacent to the tennis courts.
Second. Okay. Let's have a vote. Priscilla?
Yes.
Chemo?
Yes.
Okay, Marcia?
Yes.
And Matt?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. It's a little whisper to my side here. I'm wondering if we need a 5-minute break. We've been going for a while.
Question.
Yes.
I was wondering, we have at least one group here that's maybe number 8, we could move them up.
Move them up before we deal with the animal ordinance.
Yeah, that could be a while.
Okay, so we would move cell phone antenna to our next agenda item.
To 6?
Or whatever it would be.
6.
6. Is that okay with the rest of the board?
Yes.
Okay, now, do we want to, can we do that quickly, or should we have a break first, you think?
Let's do that quickly.
Okay, so we're gonna move to number 8, which is the cell phone attack, yes?
I was just gonna say, 7 also is we have folks here that are waiting on.
Oh, okay.
I
How
don't know.
about I just take a break? I'm the one that's.
You need a break,
I
okay.
need a break.
All right.
You guys can talk after that.
But I agree, it might be courteous to do these two first and then the animal control ordinance.
Okay, we're gonna have a 5-minute break. You need it, and then we'll be able to think.
Recording stopped.
All right.
me. We're reconvening and we have an idea to reorder the agenda, which we usually do at the beginning, but we've got some citizens here to participate. So we have the Emerald Ash Borer inoculation and the cell phone antenna citizens here to present. We want to do them like move the animal ordinance below those. So that the next one would be Emerald Ash and the next one would be cell phone. Is that amenable to everybody?
Yes.
Okay, so the next item we're going to do is the Emerald Ash Borer inoculation. We have presenters for that, or do you want to tee that one
I
off?
might tee it off here and then if there's questions. So I think everybody had a chance to read the memo. Basically, all that's being asked of the board is for permission, once funding has been raised outside of the town's purview, because we have a very cumbersome process and it's going to be a whole lot easier if it's raised outside of the town's jurisdiction. So I think all that's being asked by the Emerald Ash Board is if that funding is raised, and there's a matching grant that I think was explained in the memo, they would be allowed to inoculate certain trees that are on town-owned property that are considered a high-value tree. And we have the tree warden and deputy tree warden and a number of other very astute folks related to the Emerald Ash Borer that would be making that decision. So I would trust, again, that would all be done appropriately, and only the trees that were considered a high value and had the most chance of surviving EAB with the inoculation would be used. And I think it's as simple as that tonight, right? It's really just, I thought it would be good to get the boards to understand what was being asked here, as opposed to just the town manager blessing it.
And I think a distinction here is that the funding that was at town meeting was for cutting ash trees. This is a separate effort to inoculate and preserve the highly valued trees that can, be helped by that.
Right, and not taxpayer funds.
Exactly.
Yes.
Privately raised funds. Okay. Let's see, someone like?
I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm Chris Rimmer. I'm
Okay.
on the Emerald Ash Borer Management Subcommittee.
People have questions, or Marcia?
Yeah, so clearly it's all our land, so we don't have to ask permission of anybody for inoculation. Right?
I believe that's true.
Okay.
But yeah.
All right, and I was just thinking about the gift policy. I mean, we don't have a good gift policy at the moment, but this is kind of gifts, and I think this is reasonable. And so I think it's a good idea. And at some point, I'd like to know if you've published where or what all those cool hash marks mean on the trees, because I drive down Hobson and I'm trying to figure out, is that blue and red one more dangerous than that red one?
Mm-hmm. We think it is.
Okay, that's the deal.
But we're having a meeting tomorrow night of the subcommittee, and we will be discussing how we're gonna actually implement the process for removing these trees. And we'll explain that in listserv posts. We have, but not everybody reads every post or remembers every post they've read. So, yeah. But two town residents, the Stetsons, who are exceedingly generous, have offered a challenge grant, and they has to go to a 501c3. The Vermont Center for Eco Studies has agreed to be the fiscal agent, and then to hold that money, and then any others that we raise to match it. It's a 1-to-1 match, and then we'll have to figure out how that gets to the contractors who will do the inoculation. It'll probably be chippers, honestly. They're the outfit that everyone seems to use. And that might be a point where at least Brennan or you all get involved.
Marcia?
And I'm just wondering about the messaging, how you get this out.
Yeah, we're going to discuss that tomorrow night, but I would be interested in your thoughts. One thought I have is to issue a challenge to the entire town to help us match this grant. We could target certain individuals that we know tend to be philanthropic or civic minded or both. but I'd like to see it go out to the whole town and if we raise more than the Stetsons are offering, I have a feeling they'll match. And because this is something that's going to have to be done every 2 years, the inoculations. It's good for 2 years, then you have to repeat it. So if we could bank a little more than we'll need for this year, that'd be great. Or maybe it would allow us to do a few more trees. I mean, I picked 9. There are other trees on all 3 of those properties that could be preserved as well.
Marcia?
I just would suggest that your messaging be pretty clear, blatant, that this is separate from the vote for
Yeah.
cutting trees.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
I have an idea for message. I'll just interrupt for a minute. The Norwich Times, there's a little select board corner, and I've been writing them just because no one's fighting me to do it. Okay, but there was a thought to maybe profile the effort to, you know, with the Emerald Ash Borer. So if that's something, I could interview the committee and get a picture of a tree being inoculated or something like that. So do you all think that's okay, like for the next one? Okay, I'm willing to write it, or someone, like I say, can fight me for it, but I think that's a great subject.
When does that
I'm not-
come out next? Because according to the letter, they want to start this growing season, which is coming
Oh,
up.
no, this is fine. This is just, maybe there are people who haven't heard anything about it. And it's just 500 words, but it's nice. It's like the Norwich Times has a nice tone. It's like we're taking care of our trees, we're doing the best we can. So it would be sort of a little tidbit in the middle of the general communications.
Alternating, so if you want to alternate, not to do the whole thing.
Okay, do you want to give it a try for the next one? I could,
Sure. Or somebody else, but you know.
okay,
But
we'll
I'm
work it
open
out.
to-
We'll work it out.
Okay.
That's just a thought. And then there was another question. Was it Matt? Was it?
I had a statement since you're here, and we're going to be talking about communications and messaging. Your communications and messaging on the listserv ahead of the vote, the townwide vote, was really great. I think it's hard to keep up with all the questions that might come in, and I feel like your responses were the way they should be done. And so, we'll use you as a model as we talk about our communications.
All right, and Kimo?
So for maybe one thing, I can't wait to see the listserv the next morning when we've raised all the money, we're gonna save trees, and big trucks come in that say chippers.
The disconnect.
Yeah.
All right.
Gotcha.
Okay, any other questions? I think we need a motion. Let's see. Number 7.
Yeah. I move to authorize the inoculation of ash trees on Norwich Town property per the March 11, 2025 memo from the Emerald Ash Borer Management Subcommittee to the Select Board as included in the Select Board meeting packet.
And is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we'll vote. How do you vote, Priscilla?
Yes.
Kimo?
Yes.
Marcia?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Okay.
Okay.
And now we're going to do the cell phone antenna at DPW.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
And thanks so much. Brennan, do you want to tee that one up?
I sure will. So Barry Rotman sent us actually, I think called a few times, late summer, early fall, if I recall. And then sent an email that's in the packet about his feeling that we should try to find a cellular service vendor that would put antennas on the emergency tower at the DPW facility. And that would provide better coverage in that area of town, especially, but probably, a wide range of better coverage. And so I think I had told him I was going to look into it and then did so. And then we got into the budget season and things got very busy. So we then promised once the new board was seated, we would bring this back to the kind of public realm and the board would be able to weigh in on whether this is a project that they would like to direct me to focus attention on. Obviously, my time is finite and a lot of things going on, but I'm not opposed to this project. I think it would probably be a beneficial thing for the town, and especially that area that currently has some weak signals there. The process, I guess I would envision, and I have done a little preliminary research on trying to figure out, are there templates for this type of thing? And like, obviously, at one point when cellular towers were springing up all over the place, there must have been municipal approvals that went along with that. And I think Public Utility Commission has some role in this. So there's some more research to do. But again, I guess before I just say, yeah, I'm happy to do that, it made sense to bring this to the board for kind of your understanding of what's being asked, and I guess direction as to whether we want to, the town wants to focus on this project going forward. And I guess timing wise, I would envision probably another month or so, if I am able to really kind of focus on this, issuing an RFP at some point, which would be kind of looking for a cellular service vendor who would be interested in putting up this tower, at their expense, and potentially even getting some kind of a lease revenue from the vendor for the tower space that is owned by the town. Seeing what we got there as far as which providers were interested and what the best deal looked like, again, assuming there is interest out there. And then at that point, it would probably come back again to the board to say, here's what we found. And obviously, I think the board would want to be aware of or approve going forward with a vendor at that point.
Okay, are there questions? Ooh, we got questions. Priscilla.
You've sort of, Brendan has sort of answered one of them, because I looked at this and I thought, well, who would be in charge of this project? And it sounds as though maybe Brendan would, but I don't know whether the DPW would be. I mean, it's not my call, but we need to have somebody clearly in charge.
Right, we could direct Brennan to do this, or there might be some other person to.
Or Brennan could direct somebody.
Well, no, I mean, it's really research. I think he's just, Brennan, I think that just trying to sort of take the temperature of the board. Is this something we'd like to pursue? I mean, I think yes. I'm even wondering if it could be more than one vendor, but I don't know anything about the technology. I don't know if that tower can take, extra. I think it might be able to take one, because I think Vito was interested in it in the first place. But I'm not sure. I have a feeling Matt might have a few answers on that. If you don't.
So I'm glad that you brought this up, and I'm glad that you, because I think that this is potentially a really good idea. The tower was designed so that it has at least one spot around it that can be used by a cell phone company and generate revenue. The building at the bottom also has, segmented rack space so that they can store their stuff in a way that sort of, they can set it up so there's division, and they maintain security, and we do. And there's a backup generator up there, and we can talk, and a propane tank that feeds it, and so there's backup power. And so like this, I think that a long time ago when we were designing this, that was one of the ways that we were just going to get it built, was to have a different company, to have like Verizon build it, and then have us put up stuff on it. And now it's kind of the reverse. So I think if the question is just, is it worth pursuing? I would say it is worth pursuing, because it also benefits everyone who doesn't have cell service. From emergency services point of view, it's nice to have people have cell service as much as possible around the town, and that's a dead spot. When we put up this tower, the emergency services we didn't have radio communications in a lot of spots in Norwich. So this tower was critical to getting us to have radio communications for emergencies. And now we're kind of extending that to cell phone coverage. And I think that's a great idea for our citizens.
And also perhaps for the DPW.
Yeah, sure.
To get internet. Something.
Interesting. That's an interesting thought.
That would help solve our problem with cash.
I was thinking
the cash payments.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Yeah, I bet that could be.
Okay, Marcia?
Yeah, so I think it's a great idea. When Barry first called me about this, I remember looking and there seemed to be some contracts long ago. And there was a lot of newspaper coverage at the time, right? You probably remember this. I wasn't paying any attention.
There were test too.
Okay, but there seemed to have been a contract and am I wrong that we actually owned it after a while? So we own it. Okay, so that's good. I mean, I think there's.
Yeah, I did research. I can't find any encumbrances that would stop us from being able to do whatever we want with the tower at this point.
So, where's the tower?
It's up above the DPW facility. If you kind of look up the hill, there's some storage areas up there.
Okay.
And if you keep walking, you'll.
You can see it from
You'll
the
see it.
You can see it from the
You've
road,
probably
as you're
seen it.
turning into the dump. Look up the hill.
Okay.
It's a big tower.
Look up.
I have some experience with this. I've overseen the installation development of some sites down in Boston. There was a different generation, but there are many options, and we should get proposals.
Yes.
They will try to sell the thing, but the other thing is we should be able to get access to high-speed data and things like that through them. So
Maybe
extra service doesn't cost.
condition of putting it on there.
I think it's a no-brainer. If you've got a tower, we should be. Unless
Yeah,
people have concerns.
my hope would be that, again, by issuing an RFP, we would get the best possible deal from, again, whatever provider was going to give us that.
So I have a comment too. Early on in serving on the select board, I did a tour of the fire and police station. I think it was in Great Barrington, Mass. And it is near the ocean, but they had quite a large tower, probably bigger than ours. It was loaded. I mean, it probably had 6 or 8 carriers on it, and some of it might have been specialized for marine rescue. But I'm thinking, yeah, even if you could get more than one, I don't know if it's reasonable for our little tower. It sounds like it's set up for one. And there's a fascinating argument that occurred back at the time of figuring out about the tower with VTEL, where everyone was up in arms about not letting VTEL be on there because of an incident of moving a family cemetery. So it's a very Vermonty thing.
That's right.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Little backstory. Everyone was up in arms about moving.
The CEO.
Yes, CEO. of
Yeah,
VTEL.
yeah.
So it was
Moved the
personal.
family cemetery.
Just
So-
Air or something his name was.
Yes. All right, so any other comments or questions before I go to the public? Let's see. Would you like to speak? Want to come up and talk?
Okay, sure. I'm Barry Rodman and I live at 95 Douglas Road. Less than a mile from the transfer station and the tower. And I get cell phone service in one half of my house. 1,000 feet. And the thing that really scares me is driving on the crooked half mile. There were no homes. If anybody had an accident on that windy road, there'd be no cell phone service. And that's kind of sad. We had an emergency in actually it was in a driveway. We had to call for an ambulance. Somebody had a heart attack and we could not get cell phone service. So we had to go back to our house to call. And at this day and age, with a town like Norwich, we deserve better. We should be having cell phone service all over the town. And I'm so pleased with what happened with fire and emergency with the tower and how it improved the communication. It's going to do wonders to bring the town together and to give people better service. And in the process, we may even get money for it.
Yeah,
You know,
win-win.
Should be the goal.
yeah. The story of why it happened is kind of interesting, but it's just history. It's really not significant now. The
No.
important thing is the bond was paid off. And so we're free to do whatever we want to bring in a vendor other than VTEL on the tower. And I'm glad to see the support on the select board. I think it's great. It's a win-win situation.
We should all be equal. The cell phone moved it.
Good. Well, thank you very much.
Okay, do you have a motion? And how it work? This is not quite a defined motion on our sheet, as I moved to, but perhaps it makes sense to move the town manager to, you want to try, Marcia?
I move to direct the town manager to investigate options and issue an RFP as appropriate for cell phone antenna service at the DPW tower.
Is there a second?
A second.
Okay, let's have a vote. Priscilla,
Yes.
Chemo,
Yes.
Marcia,
Yes.
Matt,
Yes.
and I'm also yes. Okay, unanimous on that one. Now we're gonna go back to our first read of the animal control ordinance, and is the chief waiting patiently?
Yes.
Can I just stop to say thank you very much? It's really scary and I always like to tell a joke. So as I turn, either when I leave my house, mostly as I turn off Main Street onto Turnpike Road, if I'm on the phone with anyone, I just always say, sorry, I'm entering my third world country now. Bye.
Oh, okay. We hope to bring us out of the third world. Maybe they might do better though in some ways with cell phone towers, I think. Yeah, tomorrow.
I was thinking it sounded like you were up in Canada.
We were on a camel trip in Morocco, and our camel leader had a cell phone. He got a call with his wife and a baby, and there was nobody around. And he had a cell phone.
Yeah.
Amazing.
But it's, yeah, embarrassing.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on. Thank you. We have our first read of the animal control ordinance. And the chief is here, and Brennan, you wanna?
I will tee it up again. Matt, thanks for sticking around. Our 2-hour meeting has not, it's not been,
Sticking to our time.
our schedule's falling a bit behind here, so thanks. So a few months ago, there was discussion about our animal control ordinance, as you probably recall. The current ordinance we're using is dated from 2005, so it's 20 years old. And we were tasked with coming back with an updated version of an animal control ordinance, which I asked Chief Romei to focus on, and he has done, I think, a nice job of using both some of our existing ordinance and some of the VLCT model ordinance, and kind of put together what we're going to look at tonight. Again, I think for this evening, this is really a first read, a chance for folks who have just seen this to ask any questions or provide any thoughts. And then I would imagine we would come back to this at a future meeting with either some revisions or some further discussion. But I think now I would like to let Chief Romei just speak a little bit more about how this came to be, and then again, if there are specific questions tonight, we can try to answer those.
Okay. Chief Romei, I'd like to speak to the ordinance, draft
Good evening.
ordinance.
And I'll take a non sequitur out of that. And thank you so much for the previous motion on the cell tower. We actually thought about putting Starlinks on our police cars instead of cellular modems, just because of the data is just wild. Anyhow, so back to animals. I would point you towards the website, and I believe it's I honestly don't know where it landed, but there is a plethora of supplemental information that we did not put in the packet, but we put behind a link, and I think it's on the packets page of the select board page. It includes the most awesomely named guide I've ever heard of from VLCT, called the Big Book of Wolf. As you are aware, they had a number of statutory changes at the state level in the last year or two, dealing with animal cruelty and animal control, and VLCT has done a great job of pushing out updates and guidebooks and suggestions and guidance on it. What you see before you here tonight is a kitchen sink ordinance. I put everything in there and put it in there for you to consider and to look at and to think over and to give a little bit of direction, maybe where you want to go with it. There's also some notes stuck out to the side that gives a little bit of context of, where certain parts of this came from, and, where we developed it from. There's also, I believe, behind this, a grid of fines from sort of our surrounding neighborhood, so that you can give some thought to how you want to see that in our ordinance, as well as the 05 Animal Control Ordinance. And there's a copy of the citation that we use. That's really it's a local document. We would update it to match whatever the ordinance says going forward. And it gives us a nice clean place to say, hey, we've got a challenge with your animal, and here's how we move forward with it. As you go through and read through this document, there are some places where I've highlighted it, and that's where I'm really looking for guidance, really, from the board of, kind of where do you want to go with this? How strict or loose do you want to be with it? Our current ordinance, just for perspective, gives a ton of discretion and really encourages education and sort of a restorative process more than a punitive process when it comes to animals at large. And but it also does give, for lack of a better term, teeth needed if there's an animal that really gets way out of control and hurts somebody really badly or does some really bad damage. And the last thing I would tell you, kind of before we get into whatever else you want to get into or how deep you want to get into it, just a reminder of the difference between the domestic animal and the domestic pet. Domestic pet is a dog, cat, wolf hybrid, or a ferret. I don't know why. And a domestic animal is all the other animals that we typically deal with: cattle, sheep, goats, deer, bison, swine, poultry, all that kind of things. This ordinance really is geared at dogs, wolf hybrids, and to a limited extent, domestic pets.
Marcia, a comment or a question?
Couple of comments. I read everything that there was to read in the statute, the old statute, the new stuff, and I think 2 or 3 years ago, I drafted something because people were so upset about what was going on in town. And as you say, there was no teeth, so we couldn't enforce anything. So I think you have done a fantastic job of pulling together the relevant stuff, and you should be commended for that. In terms of the things that I noticed on section 4A5 prohibitions for the barking dogs, I would say 60 minutes, because I've seen a lot of problems with that. I don't think it's fair for the animal. Section 6, enforcement. I like that very much because it takes the enforcement out of the town hands. The officer refers it to the Judicial Bureau. That's what it's there for. And we don't need that extra layer. It's there for us to use. But I would note that the $65 filing fee is not required for municipalities.
Could you remind us of what that filing fee is for?
For going to the Judicial Bureau.
A court appearance, okay.
And you have to file $65. So if somebody wants to file not a municipality, that's what they do. But they do retain $12.50 for a municipal ordinance fine. So there'd be a small cost, but I imagine it'd be minimal. I think for the potentially vicious dogs, we should definitely retain that, because the municipality has standing to file a complaint in the judicial bureau, but an individual doesn't. So if the town has no probable cause to file a complaint, say it's hearsay from a person, assuming an inability to file an action in superior court for many reasons, including but not limited to lack of damages, etc., the only residence for a recourse for a resident would be to come to the select board. So section 10 says that people would come to the select board if they had a complaint about a vicious dog, and I think that's sensible.
Good. Other questions or comments, Kimo?
Just two. One is in section 13, athletic fields. Dogs are prohibited from all playing surfaces within recreation areas and parks. Huntley Meadows.
Yeah. So let me take a stab there. Bree is also still with us.
Good.
In myself, I should have mentioned that the other folks involved with this crafting of the draft were Bree as the rec director, and also Lily as the clerk who is licensing the dog. So what we're looking at here is changing the way Huntley Meadows is currently operating with loose dogs. And the playing field specifically would be the actual designated fields where activities are going on.
And could you describe them? Are they like the baseball?
Baseball, soccer.
Is soccer sometimes set up and not set up? So
Yeah.
I just would like to be very clear about what we're talking, the definition of playing surface and so forth.
So yes, Bree has created kind of a layout with field configurations within the acreage of Huntley Meadows. So in those areas, all year long, there would be no loose dogs allowed. There could be dogs that were on a leash that were near the playing fields, and there could be dogs that were on a leash that were using the Huntley Meadow, facility, but they wouldn't be loose dogs just roaming around as they are now. Now, I will offer this. I know Bree has been very interested in creating an actual dog park area. And I think she has found if I'm understanding it correctly, an Eagle Scout who has a project that will be creating a designated dog park area with fencing that would control where those dogs off leash can be. And that is kind of in the preliminary planning stages here, but that would go in conjunction with what we're trying to do as in controlling loose dogs in the area. And again, I just point out, this kind of came up in the fall when someone was using the recreational trail on a bicycle. The dog that was off leash bit the juvenile. I don't believe the owner of the dog was ever found, and there was a whole concern about sort of a rabies shot, everything you'd be concerned about if your child was bitten by a loose dog. So this is different. It is not going to be popular with everyone who would just technically let the dog loose in a giant field. And again, probably 90% of the dogs that are going to be in that situation are fine. But we've had enough concern and enough pet liability, I think, at this point that we feel like this does need to get tightened up. So this would not only be Huntley Meadows, this would also apply to like the Milton Fry trails.
Parcel 5 and so forth.
5. So
Parcel 5.
I'm not sure if parcel 5 is applicable, but the
Wasn't this defined as recreation areas or because it's in the fire district?
Well, we're talking about our town-owned.
Was that a yes or no in parcel 5?
Parcel 5 is fire district, I believe.
It is. Yes, it is.
So that would not be under the control of this ordinance?
I guess that's something we would have to consider. I
Right.
don't think, at this point, no, we're talking about fields, playing fields, and recreational trails that are owned by the town. So the Milton Fry Nature Area specifically.
This is going to be
Epic. It's going to be epic. Yes. But
I did have one more question. No.
okay.
One.
I think so, but Kimo, why don't you go? Yeah.
Well, I just wondered how impoundment works in Norwich.
Good question.
Do
Would
we
you like
have
to
an impound
describe it,
facility
Brennan?
or-
Yep. You see Matt has his hand up too, so I don't want to steal all of the spotlight here, but yes, we have at this point, the River Road Veterinarian Clinic that serves as the town pound. And we have, this was before you came on probably into the interest of the select board. I think back in November or December, we had a long discussion about how that worked and how the fees were arranged. I created an update to an MOU that had never actually gotten executed from years ago. That is still not executed. I have not gotten a response back from the owner of the veterinarian clinic to do that. So I see that moving forward as well as the ordinance. That'll kind of be a impetus to pick that back up. And I would like to let, if you would, Matt might have something else to say about it.
Regarding how impoundment works.
Well, I see his hand up. I don't know what he looks like.
Matt?
Madam Chair, it's about impoundment, but it's also in reference to the athletic fields section. I just wanted to note that it brings us in line with the generally accepted rules with athletic fields, especially those that are under control of like the schools, the Vermont Principals Association. I know where my daughters go to school, the athletic director has like an antenna, and the minute a dog hits the property, I mean, he is on it. Because there's a lot of concern with, you know, the whole fecal material in the playing field and those kind of things. So there's really a big push amongst the athletic sections to really keep, you know, animals even leashed off the playing surfaces of the field. And a lot of schools have taken the stance of they just keep it off, keep them off property, period. As it relates to impoundment, you know, impoundment really is the last resort for us. We have a lot of really good success when we do have to take an animal into custody, when we have to put them in doggy jail, of getting them back to their owners very quickly. And we have a pretty good relationship with River Road Vet Clinic. In spite of some of the rocky patches that we do hit, we'll run a dog by there. They'll scan them for a chip. We'll see if we can find an owner. It's we have a really good high success rate. Matter of fact, in my time here, we have not had to lodge a dog overnight because we couldn't find its owner. We've been pretty successful at that. Kind of forced impoundment really under this ordinance is contemplated when we have a non-cooperative person after a dog has bitten someone, that they're not interested in the confinement period and things like that, or, you know, the rare occasion where we just can't find out who a dog belongs to. That's where we would place them over at our designated pound until we could find their owners.
All right, so I'm not even going to go near the topic of dog owners at Huntley. We know that's controversial. I had a bunch of questions. One was about impoundment because we don't, and maybe we don't want to specify anywhere in the ordinance where the impoundment takes place. The other thing is this concerns only dogs. And as I recall, when we had a discussion about the animal ordinance, I guess it was last fall, I think it had to do with cats. So there's nothing about cats.
There is.
Well, I didn't, well, they're sort of mentioned, but everything specific is about dogs.
Yeah, well, I think if I may.
Well, let's let Priscilla finish first.
I was interested that, you know, you have to register a working dog. I don't know how that works. And I'm also, I mean, I'm delighted to hear that when there were problem dogs, since it's all about dogs, yeah, the chief seems to have a good success rate getting them returned to the owners and something done about that. But again, I'm thinking back to last fall when this was first brought to our attention, and that concerned an injured animal.
Oh.
As I recall.
Should we
And,
have-
and I'm remembering that discussion from last fall, and I think there was a question of when does it fall under the town ordinance and specifically the town paying something? Because I think one point of view was that if an animal control officer, which would be a police officer, locates an animal and takes it to River Road Veterinary Clinic, then that's all official. But what if I see somebody run over a cat and I say, and they kept going, maybe they didn't know, and I pick up the cat and I take it to the clinic, which sounds sort of like what happened last fall. And then there was this dispute about, well, did that count? Because it was a regular citizen who found an injured animal.
Is it not counting part about who pays for it?
That seemed to be what the problem was.
Right. I think there's
And who had jurisdiction.
Right. And I think as the chief said, he was focusing mostly on, I think, dogs, because I think they're a greater public safety threat. And then there's the big book of Wolf, which gives a lot of guidance for how to deal with that. But I too noticed that, cats weren't part of the picture, but maybe that's a section that we should revisit. That's
You
my,
are.
well,
It says under definitions, I may be stepping on your toes, chief. I see domestic pet means domestic dog, cat, or ferret.
Yeah.
And then section 4 says the general provisions are for domestic dogs, animals, pets. So I think it applies to cats, but they're not going to.
It seems very
running
specific
loose.
about.
But I have.
well, let's let Martha finish here and then we'll get back.
My question was, if I remember correctly, the MOU didn't really have any mechanism for recouping expenses. And I'm not sure, I can't remember where it landed in terms of who had authority, as Priscilla was mentioning, to just drop off an animal that has been injured. So I'd like to, and I'm also wondering how much this actually is superseding that MOU if we've approved it. And then I think I am going to wade into the you can't lose animals on Huntley. I think it's the reason that this came up 2 or 3 years ago was, and I had conversations with people who live along the top ridge of Huntley who were very upset because, they were chased by animals. They had their chickens killed by animals. And there's apparently a lot of people who like to go on a Sunday morning or a Saturday or something, I don't know, and let their dogs run. And so I think it would go a long way if we could have a dog park at the same time or as close in time as possible so that there was another venue available. But I do think we need to have something like this in place.
Right, I agree. I think even though the emphasis is on dogs, I think it's framing the dog decisions very nicely. So we could consider it as strengthening the animal ordinance as to dogs and get that section done and maybe do a little more research into the injured animal question or cats, colonies of feral cats. Should that be a town responsibility, for instance? Yeah, so, but that's a whole other section. So.
Yeah. Madam Chair.
And then, Priscilla?
I was also thinking, and maybe this has been done, and I don't know, that it might be helpful if somebody reached out to Dr. Pinello and said, do you have any input, since she's the person who runs the town?
Input on
the ordinance.
Oh,
well, actually, I called her and I said, I called her today. I said, sorry, I've been doing other things and out of town, but I said, we are going to be discussing it. You might want to look at it. It's in these, these pages in the packet.
Right.
I don't know if she had time to look at it, but it might be useful to get her take on it.
That's true. Yep. Any other questions or comments?
Madam Chair.
Okay.
You have a hand up and Chief Furley.
Okay, let's do the chief and then we'll get to Betty Barba. Go ahead, chief.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just did want to note, in the general provision, section 4, under the disturbing the peace section, we did include specifically domestic pet in that section because you could contemplate very easily a cat, howling for all night, keeping you up. Really oddly enough, the person that lives across the river from me raises peafowl. Those make a heck of a racket. And
Or guinea hens, yeah.
yeah, those are not dealt with under this, but I did just want to note that we did, try to deal with cats where where it made sense in this ordinance, where they do become a nuisance. As to the stray issue, the long, I guess, running issue, and this dates back to when Chief Frank was police chief in Norwich, is there was no gatekeeping. Dr. Pinello is regionally well known as an exceptional vet and a very caring individual, and would never turn anything away, an injured animal away at the door. But we again, historically, would get bills for animals that came from not in Norwich. So that was where we were pushing back a little gently against that, just to make sure that we understood that we were, dealing with animals that were, that originated in the town. Making sure that we were good stewards of that process. So, it's my hope that we, that MOU ultimately gets adopted by Dr. Pinello, and we can, move forward in a positive manner.
Okay, thank you. Betty Barba?
Yes. First of all, I want to take one, I know it would be in the future, but a dog park, if you ask any veterinarian or dog trainer, that is the worst place for your dog to be. That is where accidents happen, aggression between dogs. So I do not think that's something that Norwich should even think about. And if you do, I do think you should ask our local vets, and they probably all will tell you that is not a good place for a dog to be. As far as Huntley Meadow, I was there today, and there were 3 of us with our dogs in the playing field. Everybody was fine. There were no sports going on. And I remember that a few years ago, we would have, if you went to a sporting event or if you went to Huntley Meadow with your dog and there were kids around, yes, the dog should be leashed. And I understand that fully. I'm wondering, because it is a wonderful place to go and walk with your dog, if there could be hours that the public could go with their dog off leash. And that would definitely not be a time when there is sporting events or a party at the, a playground or something. I understand that we want safety for our residents or visitors, but I also know that this is a wonderful place for people to go with their dogs. And responsible people, hopefully we all are. Of course, there are exceptions, will pick up the poop and pick up other things on the field that they see, which children might have left, and take them off the field. So that's just my opinion. I hope you think about it. It's a wonderful place to go and walk with your dog.
Thank you, Betty. Okay, have we reflected enough on this for now? There's probably, it sounds like we'll need to do more research and circle back on certain issues and sections, but
would it be possible for us just to see the MOU that you're sending, just so we keep up to speed with?
I sent it about 2 months ago.
Okay, it's in a packet.
No, that was just sent. I was directed to create an MOU and work with the town to get it executed.
Matt, you were just asking to see it, correct?
I was just curious.
I can send it.
Want to send it to everybody just because
That'd
it's
be
a piece
helpful.
of the puzzle? Okay, any last comments about this? Marcia?
So the chief was asking for some guidance on its highlighted places. We didn't talk about fees or anything. Do we want him, I mean, I thought that the fees that were presented by, like Thetford or something were fine. Do we want him to try and give us a second draft that's got more filled in of the yellow spots and so that we can look at that on a second read?
I don't know if we're have enough energy to respond to all the different spots tonight, is my problem, but.
I just wondered if he had enough information from the discussion.
Oh, if he's had enough feedback. Well, we could ask him, and then Kimo, what is your?
Is there a hurry on this? Because now that I've got information from different people, I'd love a chance to look at it and
Think a little bit more.
and then bring the comments next time personally.
Yeah, well, again, in my estimation, this is really just the first read. So this is not going to be something we were gonna finalize tonight by any means, and we could certainly bring it back at a future meeting. Would plan to, I guess. So that said, we could make this an agenda item maybe for the 29th, 26th.
Yeah.
Of April. I'm trying to think of what, 23rd maybe. I don't have a calendar in front of me, but that would be maybe the next time people could have a month to think about this, and then we could have another discussion.
Marcia?
I'd just like to see things like progressing. So the next time we see this, I was just wondering if we could have some of the things filled in, if he felt that he got enough.
Or come prepared to fill those in.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Why don't we do that?
Progress, because, you asked about, is this urgent? It depends who you ask in town. Right.
Yeah. All right. I have a suggestion for the next agenda item. I would like to, this is the select board town goals. I've been thinking about this format, and I would like to get your ideas about whether this is practical, because I've just sort of made this up to try to see if it's possible for us to get a little bit more done before budget season comes up. So I thought if we had assignments with specific timelines and charges and appointments, it might work better. But I don't know if I don't know if you guys agree with that. That's the first thing, and that's the first motion. The other motions, if we did feel ready to move forward on any of these ideas.
World
that I
skating
picked
competition.
out.
World skating competition.
Oh, Betty?
Yeah,
Oh, I'm still in
sorry.
a meeting. It's okay.
I'm
Please
sorry.
So I just pulled things from our brainstorming and my sense of what might be priorities. That mentioned what I'm naming the heat plant, the interim heat plan. Really the Tracy Hall renovation committee. The town manager goals, the town manager evaluation, which are really, I think, agenda items we should deal with soon. The purchasing policy and is sort of was left for about last year. I think that's a town manager request to, bring that up to date. And tonight, Marcia was mentioning the gift policy. That needs a little bit of a look too.
I did a draft, remember?
Yeah, you did the draft, right? So, and then this communications, this just keeps coming up. I mean, we keep thinking of improvements, like putting a timestamp on the
minutes.
Yeah, on the minutes, which is terrific. And they're little things, and then they're really global things, like the different websites that are being maintained for energy. I also think the Conservation Commission has one. Maybe some of these other committees have them. Like, what kind of energy is needed to update them? How large are they? How is our own town website? There's a lot of website questions that, come up over and over again. So if we just even had like a needs assessment for communication, what's, what do we really need to be effective? And it even includes things like Chemo and I rearranged the furniture because of our image, to see if we'd look more like a board if we were around a board table. I mean, is that something we want? Because it's sort of saying, well, people show up, but then there's the TV, and is this reality TV? Is this what this is now? Like, how are we perceived? So anyway, those are the categories, but even if I could get some feedback about, I just did this, so I don't know if you guys agree, and we can't do anything unless we all agree that it's a good direction to go in. So what I'd suggest is maybe some preliminary feedback, or if you are okay with this format, agree to that. And then maybe think about these goals, whether you think they're good goals and whether you think they're structured properly to move forward, or do we want to wait, sort of table it? Marcia?
So I think, we certainly tried to do stuff like this in the past, not
So formally.
Not so formally. And it always gets derailed because there's something comes up like Hemlock Road or something like that.
Mhm.
But I think it's good to at least
Try.
I think that I have something to say about a couple of them in particular. It's bothered me about how we need to get into a rhythm, I think, in terms of like any employee, and Brendan may have some comments about this, but the contract is specific about when we do the evaluation.
Okay.
It's got a window around the September hire date. So it's got to be, I can't remember, 2 weeks before, 2 weeks after.
14 days, 2 weeks.
Yeah. And so we've got to do it in there. And I think for any employee, it's only fair if that evaluation is based on goals, which is the contract says the goals have to be set up with the town manager and the select board.
Right.
So it's only fair to set up those goals with enough time for them to be done.
Yes.
Before the evaluation. And we're kind of off cycle because of the way things, fleshed out with
the hire and then town meeting and having board change.
all sorts of stuff.
All sorts of things.
And from before that even.
Right.
So I think it would be nice if we could get onto a rhythm. And at this point, I think the only fair kind of evaluation that we could do would be based on the goals we talked about when we did the last evaluation.
Right.
But we could maybe now start talking about what the goals would be for the time that starts after September.
After September.
Because that's when he has an evaluation. And so
we wouldn't have goals right now.
We have goals because we talked about them at the last evaluation.
But a new board might have some goals, and also, the audit has produced questions about how the budget is structured. Town manager's already on it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and so he's sort of given himself a goal.
Right.
But
which I think is part of just the work process. But in terms of how we're evaluating him, I think to be fair, we need to be sort of thinking about, well, what did we say at the last evaluation, right? What kinds of.
We'd have to review that and see what the goals were. And some will just be always the ongoing duties of a town manager.
Yeah.
And then there'll be some special projects. I sort of see them as tied together, like.
Yeah.
To me, and also just determining our evaluation method, I think is pretty important. But I was thinking that these could be agenda items for next time.
Yeah.
And I would like both of them to be on there because I think they are related to each other. So to me, those two ones, those are agenda items. So that we can kind of carve out.
If I could just add for the new board members, if you look at the contract, there's a very specific methodology in terms of the evaluation. And so that's how that whole evaluation thing started out. It went through many iterations, and the sausage that came out is what you saw.
Right.
But it started with the requirements in the contract, and we can't stray too far from that.
I don't think we want to anyway.
No.
All right, so the interim heat plan is because I can tell you, I voted at least 3 times to put a new oil furnace in and been shot down. You know, like 4 to 1 every
How many
single
years?
time. Yeah, like, but I think it's disruptive to expect our entire town government to shut down and move out at a moment's notice. I think that is unreasonable. And there might be some different ways of approaching that need. So I thought that should be a particular focus that starts really soon with someone, a select board member who's sort of willing to take on as to be a liaison to get that started. So that's that one. And then the next one is, could we really act on our, we had a needs assessment for the building with the, oh gosh, I'm sort of blanking on our art, yeah, Nexus Studio Nexus. So they've done a needs assessment, but does that really translate into, and there's some levels that we need to talk about. I think they, I think it's Doug Sansaw mentioned, we'll start with what you really want to do, like a thorough renovation, energy efficient or whatever, and keep the historic character, and then see if the voters are on board with that, and then go down to those lower levels, rather than it being like Goldilocks, like let's fiddle around, oh, we'll do a medium amount, oh, we'll really go for it. So I think he's recommending to kind of go for it, but we'd have to decide as a group whether we all agreed with that idea. But then I think some action, a town committee, some town buy-in, get some ideas about how this could get put together. To me, that would be desirable, okay? And then there's the 2 policies and the communication. So we could think about all this. I don't know if you like is it necessary to have this, motion that sort of says that we like this idea of having the charge and the appointments and the timeline. That's a question for me. So, Matt?
To answer your initial question, do we think do we support this sort of idea of
trying it out?
Sort of like, sending out a single member to investigate a specific topic, and come back and report. Yes.
Okay.
I think that's the way to keep these meetings shorter and to kind of, but yet keep moving ahead.
Right.
And there's plenty of examples of previous select boards. Whenever I'm looking to get more information on a specific topic, I'll go back into old select board documents, and there's lots of examples of select board members going out, researching a topic,
and
writing a briefing, presenting it. And I think that's really efficient.
That's a good mechanism.
And then at the same time, inviting subject matter experts at the same time. So then we get a lot of information. We can answer the questions and then digest the information for at least a little while and then make decisions. I love that idea.
Okay.
I love the idea, like, if you're asking us to kind of talk about stuff that we're inspired to be investigating.
Yep.
The communications overhaul committee is something that was of my sort of top 3 ideas. We were talking about brainstorming.
Yes.
Sort of improving the budget process, getting familiar with our capital plans that everybody really understands and buys in and improves it. And then communications, like how do we communicate with the public, and then how do we receive information from the public?
Exactly.
And I like that. That includes investigating our website and then all the other, child websites that have spawned off.
Yes.
And also just like, how do we communicate in ways that don't let rumors fly on the listserv without constantly posting to the listserv?
Yes.
That's like a hard situation, but so I like all those ideas, and I love the communications one. So I'd be willing to
I was thinking you might like that
if you want. And that's all I gotta say about that.
And that one may not need to be a committee.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's simpler, way simpler if it's not.
Kind of investigative.
Maybe just start off with one.
Sure.
Okay. And Marcia?
Yeah, my concern about I always go back to statute, and the town manager is responsible for the public buildings, the repairs. And so I think we have to be careful about not stepping on those toes by being,
Inviting too many of the public in, or
well, the select board, I mean, the select board is responsible for figuring out how we're gonna pay for things, and to that end, we're kind of responsible for saying, blessing a plan, right? So, but the town manager has a certain statutory responsibility to be in charge of the buildings. So it seems to me that, for that kind of thing, if a select board member, if the town manager wants help from a select board member to look into a heating system, then I think that's good. But, we had we politely listened to, and had a whole, presentation by 2 board members about a heating system. And that just, it didn't go well. And I think it needs to be, for the heating system, probably the town manager needs to be the guy who's in charge of that, because the building. And when we get to an action committee, I think we don't want to get too far down a road with a committee member, a select board member coming in, working with a committee and saying, this is what we think should happen. I think if we're going to have something like that, there needs to be a very strict update to the select board regularly, like even every meeting. So that we can say, hold the phone, we don't like that direction, right? We want you to go in another direction, or explain why you're heading in that direction, because otherwise it could become a fruitless endeavor where the committee comes back and the majority of the board says, no, we don't like that.
that's true. And I was just thinking back to the, when I first came on, it was about the public safety building. And what we ended up with was just soliciting architects to, so you'd have 5 different options and choose, and they would cost everything out.
Yeah.
So, but I think the last time we talked about, after Studio Nexus, which really was kind of a needs assessment, we hadn't really decided on that level. We didn't really respond to that, but I do think we need to give some direction to this effort and to our town manager. And if we have to, maybe it would be more efficient to decide the scope of what we want and kind of the flavor of it, and it should be the community and the staff members who are working here who are going to use the building, and then maybe, have an RFP for design, build, or architects, like go in that direction with it. I could see doing that, but I think just maybe initiating that pretty soon, I think would be a good idea. All right, and Kimo, do you want to?
I'm very interested in both the interim heat plan and the action plan committee. I think that between the 2 of us, we can make a lot of progress together.
With the 2 of you, you and Matt, or you and Brennan?
Yeah, no.
The guy who's gonna have to deal with all this stuff.
With specific expertise, he has general knowledge, he's got the ability to go out and get RFPs and talk to people, but this is stuff I'm deeply familiar with.
Right.
And I think I can just assist with moving the process along.
Okay.
Without making decisions.
Right.
Just I'll figure out where we go. Like, what should we be looking at?
Okay.
I'd love to be doing that personally.
Okay.
It does mean that I would ask permission to speak with Brendan on a regular basis. Not direct him, but just get information, provide information, talk
Right.
about best practices.
And then we'd have to think, is that a little mini committee or not, right? What?
Not according to,
We okay?
not according to, I asked this specifically, again, up in Montpelier the other day. and they said,
Right.
No,
Yeah.
that's how you should be operating, they said. You need to
Okay,
be going out and getting some information. You need to be meeting with the people in your employees as well, as long as you're not directing them. And as long as it's at the direction of the select board, that's how you should be working, is what they said. So.
Marcia?
I think people always place I love the VLTC, but it's like an encyclopedia, right? And they give you some general information based on a large body of information. And so keep that in the back of your mind, that they're not the final word. But I think that in this regard, when we start talking about going to employ the employees that are under the purview of the town manager, I think we're crossing a line. So I think you need to work with the town manager to figure out how that goes.
Correct.
You know, when we had no town manager and I was the chair suddenly, and there was all sorts of things that needed to be signed, contracts, etc. And people in town in working for us saying, what's happening? Can you talk to us? The attorneys were quite clear with me. You do not talk to people. You are not the town manager. And so I think we need to respect that and work with Brennan.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's Brennan.
So I guess my thought would be this, as I've said frequently and recently, I think the top priority I see at Tracy Hall, after the study was done and the energy audit, was getting a reliable heat source in the next 8 months, right, before we get into the next season. And that's going to take some time, I think, because we're going to have to go through procurement and who knows what, supply chains and timing of getting installation scheduled and all of those things. So I would like, and I'm happy to work with Kimo, who I'm sure has some ideas about what heating systems could be. And I think we could come back like in the next meeting or, maybe at the second meeting in April with a proposal. And that would actually
move it along.
us, right? And so
Yes.
We've been talking about this for
A long time.
We could
Years.
call a vote right now. And we have a new board and we could say we want to replace the 2 antiquated end of their useful life boilers with a functional, highly efficient oil boiler. We could do that tonight if we wanted to. Probably shouldn't. We should probably have that on.
We probably should not.
But I'm just saying
It'll
that
be number 4.
that,
No,
well,
shot
that would be meaningful action because at that point, we would have agreed as the board, the town, that we wanted to go in that direction. And if there are other ideas, and I think in another conversation with Kimo, he was talking about heat pumps in Tracy Hall. But I think that might take more time to study and investigate than just getting an oil boiler. But I'd like to look at that and come back like literally in the next 4 weeks with, we've looked at it and here's what we think could happen. And I'm happy to work with Kimo on that. It's just kind of a designee of the board. If the rest of the board would like to do that. And I agree we could probably be more efficient that way than.
Okay, do you guys want to officially delegate Kimo to this, if you're willing Kimo to have?
Yes, I'd like to adjust it.
Okay.
If I may, research the Tracy Hall and other public building heat plan. I think we should have an overall plan for getting away from fossil fuels. It just makes sense. So if we're going to be doing this eventually, we ought to be looking at the other public buildings. We may not choose to do that right now, but an overall plan, it's easy to do. If we're having people come and consult with us about one thing, they can easily look at the other. They're simple buildings. So that's what I would like to start with.
That would, if I may, that might be a little different than what I'm imagining.
Yeah.
Because
We're
we've
talking
had
really practical.
multiple years of discussion about how do we get to net zero in Tracy Hall. And we've had studies and we've had votes and that hasn't moved. And so I agree, we want to have kind of a comprehensive buy-in of where do we want to be at the end of this. What I'm suggesting is in the interim, we can't spend another 5 months talking about it. We need to move it.
I don't think it changed the timeline at all, what I'm thinking.
We should talk offline. Maybe I don't know exactly what you're saying.
Marsha?
Well, I'm just concerned because our other public buildings are the DPW and the in the police station. And I think the limited time I've spent in the DPW building, I think we've got bigger fish to fry.
Yeah, that'll be a more comprehensive view.
Yeah.
And the public safety building has heat pumps
Right.
existing, other than the apparatus bay, which has a very, according to the latest repairs, other than having to be repaired, a very highly functioning.
Yes.
One of the better heat systems you can have. It is a fossil fuel, heated system. Again, that's such from what I've seen, that is such a heavy lift to get from oil boilers to net zero, that I'm concerned that's gonna take a lot more time than what I'd like to see.
Yeah, so I'd like a chance to make a presentation, I think. Anyway, I would like to do this within the context of that, that's all. So definitely doing Tracy Hall, not slowing down on that, focusing on that, but within a larger context. That also satisfies the energy thing that got voted on a few years ago.
Act 30 or
Article
Article
38.
Yeah, Article 36.
Yeah.
So
Does it?
I think I can focus on all those quickly and effectively at the same time. They're all part and parcel of the same thing, so.
Marcia?
Does a consultation of any other place cost more money than just a consultation?
No.
Okay.
We don't need that.
All right, so what do we want? Do you want to let sort of table this because we're really tired? Do we want to have Chemo just have a chat with the town manager about what's possible? I mean, we're awfully tired, I think. We could table this and maybe take it up again.
I think there's a sense of urgency to get heating reliable before winter.
Yes.
And I think that sense of urgency has built up for like at least
4 years.
I've been tracking it.
Yeah.
And we have, and so I would certainly support pairing Chemo with Brennan to solve this one problem, this problem.
A very focused.
Yes.
thing.
If you're asking. Yeah.
Brennan?
So my suggestion is we do table it because it's almost 10 o'clock and Chemo and I have
Have a conversation.
Conversation.
Okay.
And then we can come back to the next meeting and say, we either agree or we disagree, whatever we come to. But I think that would be a good way to do it.
All right, well, we're kind of getting started on this. Marcia, you have the draft of the gift policy, right?
I do.
Okay, so that is actually partially done. I thought I might offer to take a look at the purchasing policy, maybe meet with Brennan and see what his thoughts are on improvements. And bring it back, not rewrite it, but to kind of see where the trouble spots are from his point of view. Is that okay? Okay.
Mary?
Yes?
You don't have the handbook on here, and I think.
Right, and I left a space, an extra option for, just whatever a person really wanted to do. Because I threw out things I thought should be done, but we could certainly have you keep going with the handbook.
I think the handbook is going to help solve the problem, I think it should solve the problems when we finalize it and get back to the committees of the website stuff, all of that sort of thing that's out there hanging. So I'd like to see us do that in a nice and package.
Are you saying that it would be improved by some research? On if we had doing a deep dive on the communications, for instance, maybe it would inform the handbook?
I think it would inform the handbook.
Okay.
I think what I can do is finish it up to the extent that I think it, because I've had some more feedback from Craig Lane, et cetera. Get that in its sort of final stage and then pull in whatever Matt's got. And I had a few other things that I thought the board needed to address in relation to the website. But I'd like us not to lose sight of that because
it is important. Okay, well, let's table this to next time because we're getting exhausted. And we still have more things on our agenda.
So there are no official motions?
No, we're gonna table the agenda item I think, let's just get right back into it in the next meeting, I think. We're gonna revisit it. But we have, some direction to it. Okay, so next is town manager report.
All right, and I'm gonna kind of be quick here, as I we always get to this point and we're all kind of tired, but you've all been able to read the memo, right? So I won't go into great detail on each line. The 2 or 3 big things, we have received the 2 new police cruisers. They are F-150 Ford trucks. You may or may not have seen them already. Beautiful. I looked into one today and, aesthetics and everything, but they look very functional and they look very cool to me. And we signed the lease agreement for those today. So they're ours, and I expect the first payment will be in the next AP warrant for the next meeting. DPW, so some other big things going on. We did execute both of the contracts for the 2 major projects last week.
Nice.
Chris had the pre-construction meeting for Hemlock Road today, and is going to have the culvert project next week. So that is all moving forward as planned, and exciting stuff. I mentioned the shoulder improvement for Beaver Meadow Road. So we have executed the contract there with the vendor, and they're looking to hopefully have that done by very early summer is what we're expecting. So that's more good news there. Let's see here. I guess I'll just go down to the town manager's office. So we have the open positions right now. We have the police officer position still. That's been kind of our recurring. We have an equipment operator position at DPW that again has been years in the vacant category. And then we are working diligently to find some help for Barry in the finance office. So we have what we had originally called the staff accountant, and we had actually really not gotten much response from that. So we pivoted a little bit and renamed that as a finance assistant and left almost all of the duties the same. And that seemed to open up interest. So we've had a number of interviews for whatever reason that seemed like it sparked people's interest there. So again, hopefully soon we will have a committed hire there. And I didn't, it was already mentioned by Mary, but we did fill the administrative assistant with a lovely young woman named Britta Valance, who has been working here for 2 weeks and fitting in great. And I'm sure going to take a lot of some of the work that goes into these packets and agendas off of Miranda's plate, and she can focus on some other things. The other good news, I had mentioned previously that we were in a somewhat contentious collections issue with Windstream Communications. I don't know if you all remember that.
Right.
They had, found monies that they felt were owed to them. We did get some assistance from the Department of Public Services, who I asked to reach out to the communications provider, and they were able to, them to back down on that. So the last I heard, we were no longer being sought for collections for the amount that that was due to them. So just a little thing off
that's a big thing.
Things to worry about. And then I know several select board members have also been involved, but we've been working closely with KRT appraisals via the listers meetings. And it does again seem like at this point everything is on schedule, and it's coming down to kind of the end of the schedule here.
We're almost the last few days of it.
Almost to April, yeah. So I know they're out. I've seen their assessor vehicles all over town recently, and so again, as far as we can say today, I think everything is on schedule there.
Good, wonderful.
Yep. So I'll end it there unless there are any questions.
Okay. Any questions on the town manager report? How about department reports?
I don't.
You do have, for
Just, I was curious, the rec department, they were talking about fencing and said the first contractor to return to our previous 70-30% split format. What does that mean?
That would be a question for Bree specifically, and she left our meeting. So,
Well, we could follow up with that.
yeah, I mean, you could follow up through me if you want. I could actually.
Okay, let's charge through our liquor license and our last for formulaic agenda items. We have a motion to recess to become a liquor.
Yeah, I moved to recess the meeting of the select board at 9:51. Good grief.
9:51
PM o'clock for the purpose of executing the duties of the liquor control commissioners under the authority of 7 VSA section 167 et sec.
Okay, and is there a second? And let's get the vote. Priscilla
Yeah.
and Kimo,
Yes.
Marcia,
Yes.
Matt,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. And now we're acting as the liquor board. And we do have a motion to approve our first.
You put them all into one for efficiency's sake.
Well, that's great because we're tired.
We are tired. I think that's great.
Would you like to, someone move it?
I move to approve the first class license application number 5561651 for King Arthur Baking Flour Company, Inc. The outside consumption permit application number 55652 for King Arthur Baking Company, Inc. And the outside consumption permit application number 55653 for King Arthur Baking Company, Inc.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so our vote. Priscilla, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Kimo?
Yes.
And Marcia?
Yes.
And Matt?
Yes.
And myself, it's unanimous. Is there a motion to close the?
I
Norwich?
move to close the Norwich Liquor Commission session at 9:52.
Cool.
Woohoo, PM o'clock. And reconvene the select board meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, that was Marcia. Although with competition from Kimo, but Marcia. Let's see. Priscilla, how do you vote?
Yes.
Kimo?
Yes.
Marcia?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Okay, we zoom through that. 13 is approved the minutes of March 12th, 2025. Any comments on the minutes?
Just excellent.
Well done.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we're okay with adding the timestamps.
Why not?
They're very
I
helpful.
thought they're helpful, right?
Yeah,
So
it'll be helpful for stamping the
move
videos. and
forward
so
with that format would be good. And that is as presented, so it's perfect. So if we'd like to move that one. Who's feeling frisky? Who wants to move that? So we need to move to approve the minutes.
I move to approve the minutes for March 12th, 2025 as presented.
Okay, is there a second?
Second. Oh, sorry.
And that was
Got that.
Callaway on that one. Okay. Priscilla, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Kimo?
Yes.
And Marcia?
Yes.
And Matt?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Okay. Now we've got warrants to approve. And they are all, let's see, 1, 3, that's all right.
There are 3 of them.
There's 3 and they're all grouped together, which is nice for moving them. Do people have questions on any of the warrants?
I'm sorry if I did.
That's okay.
Some poll workers got paid, really? During the election, we have
They
poll
used to.
worker stipends.
They used to get paid.
Well, we were paying some of them. I'm like, who got paid?
So I don't.
I didn't get paid.
I don't know if that's the current practice.
That was Bonnie. She didn't pay, or was it Lily that instituted it, that select board members don't pay?
I mean, I don't care, but it's.
It just popped out, yeah.
It's like, oh.
Anything else of concern or?
Oh, sorry, I'm still in the big fat one. Elon, not Elon. Financial Services. Who are they?
Inline Financial Services?
Yeah, they did a lot of, I don't know.
Where are you, where are you? seeing it?
I'm on page 3 of 8. I mean, there's a whole bunch of stuff they did, financial services, I don't know, they did administration, miscellaneous, professional service, I don't know. Who did?
That might be, oh, it's our new credit card. It says Bar Harbor, which is Bar Harbor.
Was it
Oh, is that what
transferring
Bar Harbor is?
credit
Oh,
card?
it's a credit card.
Yeah, I was thinking, I've never heard of a Line Financial, but yeah, so,
Okay.
so we have a new,
Okay.
credit card.
No, a legit new one. Good,
Okay, good.
great.
Wow, nice.
Yes. So it's great with the detail.
I unfortunately look at all the numbers, even if I don't understand them.
That's very diligent. Any other concerns?
Except we lost the plate. Apparently we lost the license plate, but that doesn't matter.
Okay,
Happens.
so we ready to move this?
Yeah,
Would you like to?
I'll move it.
Okay,
I move to approve AP warrant number 1256 in the amount of $224,625.65 to be paid from the general fund. AP warrant number 1257 in the amount of $26.50 to be paid from the general fund. And AP warrant number 1258 in the amount of $344.87 to be paid from the general fund.
is there a second? Okay, that was Matt. And are there further questions?
Or the ones that want to.
Give me some. Scrutiny over here.
The warrant articles came out separate from.
Yeah, they came out on Monday, because we had a.
Yeah, I just.
They had to be
I'm
added.
looking at both.
Oh, and the memo very helpfully said pages, you know. where they were. That was helpful.
This is the big one.
I have a hard copies here that I'm gonna pass down as soon as the vote's taken.
So are you,
Arouse them.
Matt and Marcia, are you still looking
Sorry.
for information or?
Yeah, I'm okay.
Matt, are you?
Yes.
Did you vote?
I'm ready.
Is everyone ready to vote? Okay, so Priscilla
Yes.
and Chemo
Yes.
and Marcia,
Yes.
Matt,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. The next item is receipt of correspondence, and we had pulled the correspondence from John Farrell and Alicia Graft.
Right.
The other correspondence was from Peter Orner regarding pedestrian safety on Route 5 off of Hudson Road. And John Carroll with Select Board research on the open meeting law. And is there a motion to accept all correspondence?
Move to accept all correspondence.
Okay, is there a second?
So there's 3.
I'll say.
Okay, I think Priscilla was first on that one.
With the whole key.
We're getting there. Okay, so let's vote. How do you vote?
Oh, yeah.
Priscilla
Yes.
and Chemo
Yes.
and Marcia,
Yes.
Matt,
Yes.
and yes. Okay, so we do have to sign the warrants. I think they're coming down, and after that, we'll move to adjourn. But let's get the warrants signed
Yeah,
first.
let's do that so I don't forget.
Thank you all for your patience tonight. My time estimates, should I just post every number?
But
Things happen, right?
I didn't know something was gonna be.
I just got there, that's the minutes.
Would you like to sign this? Let's see.
Oh, the minutes.
It's on Mary's. Oh.
That's what.
A lot around here.
Want to get that one before it moves away. A sea of documents. This one is signed.
Pass minutes as well.
Okay. Let's make a pile.
Yeah.
You think the bears went back to sleep? For a while.
I'm enjoying the birds.
Again.
Okay. That's
Uh,
either those are me or.
So you sign there.
Okay.
Mary signs there.
Pile of woolly bears, all cooled out and cold. When they warmed up, started.
Mary, addendum B from that for you to countersign.
Okay.
Good.
Okay. Now, make sure we get them all nicely delineated here. That one. There's 3 of them, right?
Yeah. 2 of them are just one pagers.
So back page.
Yes.
Okay. If we had done, okay. Right, we get caught up here, it's done. Great stamina, great sense of humor for this work, so thank you.
You do a good job of.
All right,
I was in a grabby mood when I came in.
Okay, last warrant has been signed. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Second.
And Matt has seconded that. Okay, Priscilla, how do you vote?
Oh, yes.
And Kimo,
Yes.
Marcia,
Yes.
Nat?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. What is the exactly?
10:02.
10:02.